Chapter 98. Cao Xing smirked and looked at Xiao Hongye mockingly. He wanted to know what else she could say. Aren't you curious why I'm staying in a hotel instead of going home? It's actually all because of Jing Yunjiao. She dug up 2 wild ginseng in the mountains. My dad said that he saw the ginseng with his own eyes. It's worth at least a few $100,000. Jing Yunjiao even spent $200,000 to buy a broken jar in town. If you don't ask around, you'll know. Now that my dad wants me to find out where she lives, he probably wants to get his hands on the money. Xiao Hongye hurriedly said. She didn't believe that Cao Xing could resist this temptation. Sure enough, when Cao Xing heard this, he was both shocked and greedy. This Jing Yunjiao actually got so lucky? How could ginseng be so easy to dig up? There were so many people in Ningxia town who relied on the mountain to make a living, yet no one could find any treasure. Isn't that so? Brother Cao, you're short of money now, and my dad wants me to investigate Jing Yunjiao, so we can work together. Xiao Hongye casually suggested. I can find out where Jing Yunjiao lives. You can go when there's no one at home. When the time comes, we'll split the benefits in half. Sister Xiao, you're getting more and more shrewd. You don't need to put in much effort to get benefits. You even schemed against your dad. Cao Xing said in a strange tone. Xiao Hongye pursed her lips. You know my dad. Even if he took Jing Yunjiao's things, he wouldn't really be willing to spend tens of thousands to let me go to the city to learn dancing. She knew very well that her father was just encouraging her. If he really got his hands on it, he might even say that he'd help her keep it for her dowry. At most, he'd give her a few $100 to buy clothes. Rather than that, she might as well work with Cao Xing. By the time her father found someone, it would already be too late. He couldn't blame her if he couldn't find anything. He would only vent his anger on Jing Yunjiao. Cao Xing took out a cigarette and took 2 puffs. Through the smoke, he looked at the girl in front of him who was in her prime, but he felt a chill run down his spine. As expected, this daughter took after her father more. Xiao Hongye and Xiao Weimin had the same temperament. It could even be said that the student had surpassed the master. Originally, Cao Xing still had some thoughts in his heart. After all, he had liked Xiao Hongye since a long time ago. Otherwise, he wouldn't have helped her time and time again. Now that a man and a woman were in the same room, it was a rare opportunity. However, seeing Xiao Hongye in this state, Cao Xing only felt that all his desires had been extinguished. He didn't want Xiao Hongye to do something terrible to take revenge on him when he went out to charge and break through enemy lines. The two of them spent the night together peacefully. The next morning, there was a woman wearing a mask and a hat, pretending to be doing morning exercises, strolling around the neighborhood. Jing Yunjiao would go to Old Man Guari's place every Saturday to sell medicinal herbs, and it was the same this time. However, as soon as she went downstairs, she felt a strange gaze. After all, she was also a martial artist now. Even if her skills weren't considered high, martial artists were more sensitive to this kind of unusual aura. It was very difficult to ignore it. When she turned her head to look, she saw that the other party had already retracted his gaze and had his back facing her. He was wearing a black overcoat, and his whole body was wrapped up tightly. He looked like he was doing morning exercises, but there was clearly something wrong with his attire and his unsteady footsteps. That figure, it was very familiar. A figure flashed through Jing Yunjiao's mind. The corner of her mouth suddenly pulled up into a smile, and she turned around as if she didn't notice anything wrong. Behind her, Xiao Hongye breathed a sigh of relief. However, at the same time, her eyes revealed traces of excitement as she stared at the building. When she raised her eyes, she saw Suchu hanging clothes on the balcony. Her heart thumped fiercely, and she was extremely excited. Chapter 99. After Xiao Hongye found Jing Yunjiao's residence, how could she be willing to stay in the neighborhood any longer? She hurriedly rushed back to the hotel. Cao Xing was currently sleeping soundly on the bed. Xiao Hongye's heart was a little uncomfortable, but she still told Cao Xing what she found. What Xiao Hongye didn't know was that Jing Yunjiao had seen her enter the room with her own eyes. Hua Zei, Xiao Hongye is in room 301 of Ru Gui Hotel. I hope your actions will be clean and efficient. Jing Yunjiao left the hotel and directly informed Hua Zei. She didn't need to care about the rest. In terms of intelligence, although Qiao Hongye had a lot of ideas, she wasn't bad either. She was just too lazy to use them. Today was a rest day, and Qiao Hongye had spent so much effort to wander around the neighborhood. She was clear as to why she had done so. She could also roughly guess what Qiao Weimin was thinking. Since she knew the enemy as well as herself, she would be letting down Qiao Hongye, who had worked so hard to keep an eye on her, if she didn't invite him into her trap. After the phone call, Jing Yunjiao went to Old Man Shu's place as usual. The old man's temper was still strange, but he was kind to her. Especially after he had obtained the ginseng, his mood had obviously improved a lot. Jing Yunjiao's current memory could be said to be photographic. She could memorize many things word for word after reading it a few times. Therefore, the book that Old Man Shu gave her didn't pose any difficulty to her. However, when she entered the door this time, there was something different. The hotel owner, Li Xiaoyun, was also there. When Li Xiaoyun saw her, he was similarly surprised. Old Man Shu, the little girl you were talking about is her? That's right. Old Man Shu nodded. He looked at Jing Yunjiao with a rare look of admiration. He even waved his hand for her to come forward and said to her, "This is the grandson of an old friend of mine. If you have any trouble, you can ask him for help." Li Xiaoyun was even more puzzled. Old Man Shu's personality was strict and indifferent. He didn't like to meddle in other people's business, but he had a soft spot for medicinal herbs. He would never owe someone a favor for an unrelated person. However, he had just praised Jing Yunjiao in front of him, saying that she was clever and a genius. He even took the initiative to let him take care of her. Elder Shu, what a coincidence. I know her. Li Xiaoyun's pair of peach blossom eyes slightly raised, and the corner of his mouth carried a faintly discernible smile. His entire body gave off an unrestrained feeling, and when he spoke, his voice was as light as a feather, and his voice was seductive. Oh! Shu Laro turned his head in surprise and heard Li Xiaoyun explain, "She saved someone in my hotel." "You also know medicine?" Elder Shu frowned. Jing Yunjiao nodded. "I know a little." Old Man Shu tried his best to pout, but he didn't say anything. When he first met this girl, she was a little mysterious. She raised a lot of medicinal herbs, so he wouldn't believe that she didn't have an expert guiding her. To be able to make you think so highly of her, classmate Jing is indeed outstanding. It's just that I wanted to treat her to a meal before, but I didn't expect to be rejected. Because of this, I was sad for a long time, Li Xiaoyun joked. Old Man Shu gave a rare smile. Young children don't know how to socialize. Xiaoyun, you don't have to take it to heart. Why don't I send you 2 jars of medicinal wine later as an apology on her behalf? Li Xiaoyun narrowed his eyes. Naturally, he could hear the protectiveness in Old Man Shu's words. He smiled and said, "Thank you, Elder Shu. My grandfather has been thinking about you all day." Jing Yunjiao was a little confused as she watched the old man and the young man talking about Tai Kai. However, she wasn't interested in Li Xiaoyun, so she didn't want to speculate. Jing Yunjiao followed Old Man Shu and studied the concoction of medicinal herbs for another day. She didn't leave until night fell. When she arrived at the entrance of the residential area, she didn't go in. Instead, she called Suchu and Gan Jinchen to come out. Chapter 100. In Suchu's eyes, Jing Yunjiao was a complete homebody. Normally, she would only go out once on Saturday. After returning home, she would always lock herself in her room. Today's initiative was very rare, so Suchu agreed without thinking. Although Gan Jinchen was a bit hesitant, he couldn't dissuade his cousin. He also changed his clothes and went downstairs. "Cousin, did the sun rise from the west today? You actually didn't go home to study." Suchu pulled Jing Yunjiao's arm, her face full of excitement. "Where are we going to play?" Jing Yunjiao smiled. "I'll treat you guys to a meal." The meal wasn't long. They just wanted to see if Qiao Hongye would take the bait. "I just happen to be hungry. Then I want to eat big plate chicken and grilled fish. Let's go to the restaurant at the intersection. Their food is delicious." Suchu's face was full of greed. She pulled Jing Yunjiao with one hand and Gan Jinchen with the other, and ran towards her favorite food stall. Jing Yunjiao faintly felt that someone was watching from behind. She couldn't help but smile and cooperate with Su Chu without turning her head. "Why did you suddenly think of treating us to a meal?" After ordering, the three of them sat at the table and waited. Gan Jinchen's face was full of suspicion. He felt that Jing Yunjiao's expression was a bit strange. If it was in the past, he might have thought that she was up to no good. However, because of the rumors in the past few days, Gan Jinchen also felt irritated by the strange gazes of others. He actually sympathized with Jing Yunjiao. He even felt that she was simply a weirdo for being able to study peacefully in this kind of environment. He couldn't help but admire her in his heart. One must know that ever since the rumors spread, he didn't hear a single word that the teacher said in class. "I've lived in your house for so long, but I haven't had a formal meal with you guys. Now, let's treat this meal as a celebration of our official meeting. Isn't that good?" Jing Yunjiao said with a smile. Gan Jinchen curled his lips. "You and Chu Chu are the same age. Why do you always speak so seriously? You don't look like a child at all. You look more like my grandfather." Not only were his words similar, but his conduct was also similar to the old man's. He wasn't angry at all. If it weren't for the fact that Jing Yunjiao had the face of a 15 or 16-year-old, he wouldn't have been able to resist treating her as an elder. "Cousin is right." Su Chu tapped her chopsticks and said, "Gan cousin, you're especially cold when you're not smiling. My classmates all say that they feel a sense of distance when they see you. They feel that you're not easy to get along with. You're like a miniature version of the teaching director." Jing Yunjiao's mouth twitched. Dean. The female head of teaching in her school was strict and didn't talk much, but she was definitely good at dealing with students. No matter how she looked at it, she didn't look like her at all. "The dean was probably uglier than you when he was young," Gan Jinchen added. When Su Chu heard this, she immediately laughed and slapped the table. Yes. Luckily, you're pretty, or else you'll be the head of the teaching department in the future. That's why you have to learn how to dress up in the future. Since you're born with such good conditions, why don't you use them? If it weren't for the fact that you don't pay attention to your appearance, then the top of the school beauty list would be set up for you." Jing Yunjiao rolled her eyes. "Are you two going to criticize me? Hihi, it's a rare opportunity. I'm just telling you the opinions of my classmates. Cousin, you'll definitely change, right? In the future, you'll be gentle, you'll smile, and you'll become cute, right?" Su Chu winked and looked funny. Jing Yunjiao's lips curled up. She paused and said straightforwardly, "I really won't." This so-called sense of distance wasn't actually aloof. It was just her many years of self-protection. Rather than saying it was aloof, it was more appropriate to say it was cautious. Before her rebirth, her temperament even carried a strong sense of humility. Even now, it was difficult to restrain the habits in her bones. If she suddenly became gentle and cute, wouldn't others be scared to death? Chapter 101. Su Chu pouted, her eyes full of resentment. But looking at Jing Yunjiao's cool appearance, her maiden heart was captured after a while. She stuck close to Jing Yunjiao, looking as close as real sisters. There weren't many people at the food stall, so the dishes were served quickly. Not long after, the three people started eating. However, Jing Yunjiao's seat was a bit special. She could see the situation at the entrance of the neighborhood as soon as she raised her eyes. After waiting for half an hour, Jing Yunjiao still didn't see Qiao Hongye's figure. She even thought that she had miscalculated. But when a man smoking a cigarette appeared, Jing Yunjiao's brain suddenly flashed with a sharp pain. It was as if some memories had broken out of the ground. She stood up in a flash. "What's wrong?" Su Chu suspiciously raised her head to look at her. Seeing that her complexion was a bit frightening, her heart thumped. She quickly stood up to support her and said, "Cousin, your face is so white. Are you feeling unwell?" It wasn't just white. That gaze seemed to want to kill someone. Su Chu's courage wasn't big, so she was naturally scared. Jing Yunjiao opened her dry mouth and said, "I saw an acquaintance." "An acquaintance? A friend?" Gan Jinchen didn't think so much and asked. Jing Yunzhao's mouth curved into a cruel smile. She said to the two people, Jin Chen, Chu Chu, you two wait for me for a while. I have something to do. I'll be back in a while. No. I'm worried about your current state. I'll go with you. Aren't you going to see a friend? The two of us won't embarrass you. Gan Jinchen said. Jing Yunzhao stared blankly. She discovered that the two people were looking at her with great concern. Her heart relaxed a bit. She thought for a bit and said, then, okay. She remembered who the hoodlum that escaped in her previous life and this life was. Kaoxing. In her previous life, Kaoxing had escaped. Although she remembered what he looked like, she was afraid that she could not remember him clearly. Especially since Kaoxing had a common face, it was easy to forget him. Moreover, because she did not call the police, the other hooligans were not arrested. Instead, they dropped out of school and went home to earn money for the Qiao family. Kaoxing hadn't appeared in her line of sight for a very long time. But in her past life, the moment she killed Qiao Weiman, Qiao Hongye and a man burst into the room. Qiao Hongye kept on calling her a vixen who seduced her stepfather, and on the other hand, she asked that man to save her. At that time, the man's body blocked her line of sight, so she actually did not see Qiao Weiman's last breath. She had killed someone in self-defense, so the two of them had labeled it as murder. The man who had appeared at that time was Kaoxing. At that time, he had a decent appearance, wore a suit, and had thick black hair. She did not associate him with the hooligan from a few years ago. However, even though they were far apart, she could still see the silhouette clearly. When she looked at the yellow-haired figure, the two figures instantly overlapped. If she were to ask who she hated the most in her previous life, other than Qiao Hongye, there was also this Kaoxing. On one hand, it was because she did not understand why a stranger would want to harm her. He clearly knew that she killed someone in self-defense, but still wanted to use Qiao Weiman as a witness. On the other hand, there were some things that she could not understand in the few years she had spent in prison. At that time, because she had suffered too much from Qiao Weiman, she had bought a dagger and placed it at the bedside for self-defense. If an accident happened, it could also scare Qiao Weiman. Therefore, at that moment, she did not really want to kill anyone. It was only because Qiao Weiman thought that she would not dare to do it that she was forced to, so she stabbed him in the heart. However, her strength in her previous life was different from now. At that time, she was malnourished all year round, so her body was always weak. Basically, there was no way she could kill someone in one blow. Especially after she made her move, Qiao Weiman was obviously still alive. Unfortunately, when Kaoxing tried to save him, Qiao Weiman died. This matter made her suspicious for a long time, but at that time, her will to live had already dissipated. When she thought about it, she always thought that she was dreaming. She was muddle-headed and did not understand until she died. Chapter 102. After being reborn, Jing Yunzhao still had some doubts in her heart. In fact, that feeling of doubt was even stronger than before. Now that she was a medical student, she was even more convinced that she couldn't have killed anyone in her previous life. The cause of Qiao Weiman's death must have been this Kaoxing, but in the end, these two people pushed the blame onto her. It's just that whether Qiao Hongye knew it was Kaoxing's doing or not, Jing Yunzhao wasn't clear. At this time, the three of them paid and immediately followed Jing Yunzhao back to the neighborhood. However, after taking 2 steps, Jing Yunzhao saw Qiao Hongye hiding behind a gate. Chu-chu, let's go in through the east gate. Jing Yunzhao pulled Su-chu and directly turned around. Jing Yunzhao deliberately walked in the dark to ensure that Qiao Hongye couldn't see her. However, Qiao Hongye wasn't stupid. If it wasn't for Jing Yunzhao being on guard, she might not have discovered where she was. Su-chu and Gan Jinchen were a bit puzzled, but still followed Jing Yunzhao's instructions. The three of them entered the neighborhood from the east gate. Standing downstairs, they looked into the room and saw a faint light flashing inside. Cousin. Did a thief enter our house? Su-chu instantly became nervous. This thief was too daring. They only went out for a short while and he actually entered their house to steal. Chu-chu, let's go find the property management. Gan Jinchen wasn't an impulsive fool. He didn't think of rushing in. Although they had some money in their house, He and Chu were children after all. The total amount was only a few thousand yuan. Chu, you know Xiao Hongye, right? Jing Yunjiao asked. I've seen her before, but I don't really know her. Why? At this time, Jing Yunjiao suddenly mentioned Xiao Hongye, making her a bit confused. Xiao Hongye should be the accomplice. She's currently keeping watch at the entrance of the third alley across from our neighborhood. If you look for the property management, she'll be the first to see you. She'll definitely call the thief inside. At that time, we won't be able to catch him at all. In my opinion, the two of you should just treat it as if you've seen an acquaintance and restrain Xiao Hongye so that she won't have time to make a call. I'll take care of the thief here and wait for the police to arrive, Jing Yunjiao said. After she said that, Su Chu was dumbfounded. Xiao Hongye is an accomplice. It can't be. Although she hadn't interacted with Xiao Hongye before, the other students all said that she was very gentle. How could she be an accomplice? Jing Yunjiao knew that these two people didn't believe him, so he simply said, the acquaintance I just saw is called Kaoxing. He's a hooligan. Didn't someone block me at the school gate before? 5 of them were caught. Kaoxing was the leader of those hooligans, but he managed to escape. Upon hearing this, Su Chu was even more shocked. She never thought that Xiao Hongye was this kind of person. She didn't have a good impression of Xiao Hongye, but she also didn't have any enmity with her, so she didn't pay much attention to her. However, it was hard to imagine that such a pretty daughter from a humble family would actually hide such a vicious heart. You mean that Xiao Hongye was the one who caused you to be blocked by those hooligans? Gan Jinchen also felt that his 3 views had been attacked. He and Xiao Hongye were both members of the student council, so they usually interacted with each other quite often. To be honest, he didn't really like Xiao Hongye. He always felt that her expression when she spoke made him uncomfortable, so he usually maintained a distance from her and never got close to her like other boys. That's right. Other than blocking me, the rumors this time also came from her mouth. Jing Yunjiao said honestly. But, why would she find someone to steal our things? There's no benefit to it, right? Su Chu was even more puzzled. She found out that I have an expensive ginseng in my hands. When I went out this morning, I saw her observing nearby. That's why I specially invited you guys out tonight. Rather than waiting for the other party to make a surprise move, it's better to create an opportunity and then catch a turtle in a jar. I'm very sorry, but this meal was mixed in with these reasons. Chapter 103. Jing Yunjiao had an apologetic look on his face. Gan Jinchen opened his mouth but didn't say anything. No wonder he felt that Jing Yunjiao was absent-minded when he was eating today. It turned out that he was hiding something. She wasn't angry at Jing Yunjiao for such a small matter. She just felt that he was a little too daring. Although it was good to catch a turtle in a jar, the other party was a hooligan boss. He definitely wasn't someone to be trifled with. Fortunately, her idea wasn't wrong. As long as they called the police and caught the culprit, they would be safer. They wouldn't have to worry all day about when the culprit would sneak in and steal. Gan Jinchen and Su Chu could only follow Jing Yunjiao's instructions and leave the neighborhood. They circled behind Xiao Hongye from the side alley. Seeing Xiao Hongye looking around, Su Chu and Gan Jinchen believed Jing Yunjiao's words even more. They were furious. The world they lived in was relatively simple. They never thought that someone would be so vicious as to bribe hooligans to steal other people's things. Even if she didn't like Jing Yunjiao was still someone who lived under the same roof as her for more than 10 years. You must be Xiao Hongye. What a coincidence. What are you doing here? Su Chu restrained the anger in her heart and squeezed out a smile. She grabbed Xiao Hongye's arm and opened her mouth. Ah! Xiao Hongye didn't expect someone to be behind her. She was shocked. When she turned around, she was even more dumbfounded. Why did Su Chu and Gan Jinchen come here? Xiao Hongye wasn't familiar with this area. How could she know that the alleys here were all connected? You guys, why are you here? She clearly saw Jing Yunjiao and the other 2 leave the neighborhood to eat at the restaurant. Although they came out of the restaurant, they didn't enter the neighborhood but went in the opposite direction. A trace of disgust flashed through Su Chu's eyes. She couldn't maintain her smile any longer and curled her lips. We live in a residential area. It's normal to walk here. But it's really strange for you to look around here at this time. I heard that Jing Yunjiao is staying with you guys. I was worried about her, so I came over to take a look. Qiao Hongye frantically found an excuse. Gan Jinshan's dislike for Qiao Hongye grew even stronger. Come and take a look. Not during the day but at night. Instead of entering the neighborhood, he chose to stay in such a dark corner. If that's the case, why don't you come upstairs with us? Jing Yunjiao is here, Gan Jinchen said deliberately. Qiao Hongye immediately felt a buzzing sound in her head. Jing Yunjiao is at home. Yes, she is usually very obedient. She doesn't like to run around outside at this time. Su Chu pouted. She was angry and happy at the same time. Let's see what else you can say. Qiao Hongye felt that it was over. Cao Xing would definitely be discovered. But the next second, she thought again. There was only Jing Yunjiao at home. How could Cao Xing not be able to deal with her? What she needed to do now was to delay these two and not let them go upstairs. Otherwise, when there were more people, Cao Xing would definitely be caught. With this thought, Qiao Hongye immediately pulled Su Chu's hand back. Su Chu, you must not tell my sister that I came here. She really doesn't like me. If she knows that I secretly came to see her, she will hit me when she sees me. What nonsense are you talking about? My cousin won't hit anyone. I think you are the one with bad intentions. What are you trying to do by always ruining my cousin's reputation? Oh right, our house seems to have been robbed. Since you are so sneaky, that thief must be your relative. But it's okay. My cousin has already called the police. He definitely won't be able to escape. Su Chu couldn't help but say after hearing Qiao Hongye's words. Anyway, the matter was already settled. They were watching. If Qiao Hongye dared to make a call, she would pounce on her and scratch her to death. Chapter 104. Su Chu blurted out the truth in a moment of impulse. Gan Jinchen could only shake his head helplessly. At this time, Qiao Hongye couldn't do anything. It didn't matter if she knew. Sure enough, when Su Chu finished speaking, Qiao Hongye felt as if she was struck by lightning. You called the police? Qiao Hongye muttered. In an instant, tears welled up in her eyes. She grabbed Su Chu's arm with both hands, not knowing what to do. Her mind was already in a mess. Called the police? That's why Su Chu and the rest came to find her. Were they afraid that she would escape or that she would inform Cao Xing? But how would they know? Qiao Hongye's mind kept replaying what happened today. When the image in her mind stopped at Jing Yunjiao leaving the house in the morning, her face paled. Could it be that Jing Yunjiao had already seen her at that time? That's why he went downstairs with Su Chu and the rest today, and then purposely led them to make a move. Thinking of this, Qiao Hongye shook her head repeatedly in her heart. No way, no way. If that was the case, wouldn't she be an idiot and let Jing Yunjiao play with her? Seeing Qiao Hongye so scared, Su Chu felt a sense of righteousness as if she had done a good deed. Scared? Qiao Hongye, why are you so bad? You actually found someone to steal my cousin's things and even falsely accused her of being pregnant. She could even say something like being pregnant. How vicious. Qiao Hongye bit her lips and instantly shed tears. I didn't. I really came to see my sister. I don't know anything about the thief you're talking about. Oh, right. Are you talking about Cao Xing? I just saw him enter the neighborhood. I heard from my friends that Cao Xing is a hooligan who commits all kinds of crimes. When he went in just now, he even threatened me to pretend that I didn't see him. At that time, I was still a little confused. Qiao Hongye's brain worked and immediately found an excuse for herself. If Cao Xing was caught, he would most likely give her up. But she had to leave a way out for herself. So no matter what, she had to clench her teeth and not tell the truth. She kept repeating the lie in her mind, trying to numb herself. It was as if she had really met Cao Xing and he had really scared her. She revealed an extremely terrified expression. Su Chu was stunned by Qiao Hongye's acting skills. She had never seen a girl who could be so thick-skinned. It could not even be described as thick-skinned. He was selfish and changed his attitude faster than flipping a book. Gan Jinchen also admitted defeat. He subconsciously pulled his cousin behind him. It was better to stay away from this kind of girl. What if her selfishness was contagious? However, this was bad. Xiao Hongye didn't personally go upstairs to steal anything. Now that she had found such an excuse for herself, the police wouldn't treat her as an accomplice, right? Didn't that mean she had escaped? How cunning. After a while, Jing Yunjiao and the property management team dragged out a person. The police arrived soon after. It was only then that Gan Jinchen relaxed and dragged Xiao Hongye over. When Cao Xing saw Xiao Hongye standing with the others, he immediately went crazy. Slut. Were you the one who gave me up? Xiao Hongye, this little slut. She must have purposely arranged this to catch him. Xiao Hongye shrunk her head. Even if she didn't do it, she could only agree. Police uncle, I know him. He's a hooligan who often strolls around our school's entrance. When he went in just now, he saw me and even said that if I called the police, he would kill me. I was scared and didn't dare to call the police, but I was also worried that he would do something bad, so I secretly watched from afar. Chapter 105. Jing Yunjiao narrowed his eyes. He wasn't surprised by Xiao Hongye's reaction. Although Xiao Hongye wasn't old, she had been shrewd since she was young. In addition, she had Xiao Weimin as her role model, which made her even more ruthless. If Xiao Hongye were to lower her head and admit her guilt, Jing Yunjiao would think that there was a problem. However, Xiao Hongye's words made Cao Xing's eyes spit fire. Don't listen to her nonsense. She's helping me keep an eye on him. She even bribed me to help her deal with Jing Yunjiao. Xiao Hongye's tears fell. You. How can you say that? I've clearly only seen you before. I wasn't the one who called the police just now. You can't accuse me wrongly. Police uncle, you must investigate thoroughly. Jing Yunjiao is my sister, and these two people are also my schoolmates. Why would I want to deal with them? Suchu puffed up her cheeks. She was so angry that she stomped her feet. Her little face was red. The police looked at Xiao Hongye crying so sadly. Not only did she look small and delicate, she was also very pitiful and obedient. How could they think that she was lying? She was even more dissatisfied with Cao Xing, this hooligan. This hooligan was too vengeful. This little girl coincidentally got involved, but he actually insisted on making this girl take the blame for him. He was simply harming the flower bud of the motherland. Little girl, don't worry. We won't accuse anyone wrongly. However, you must be careful in the future. It's better to call the police first when you meet such bad people. This way, others won't misunderstand. The police said this and dragged Cao Xing into the police car. Cao Xing's heart was filled with resentment. In this line of work, there weren't many who hadn't entered the palace. However, he had walked right into the trap. What a shame. Xiao Hongye, this slut, dared to lie to him. In order to save time, he first confirmed Jing Yunjiao's room. In these 10 minutes, he had been rummaging through Jing Yunjiao's room. However, he couldn't find the so-called ginseng. He didn't even have a single piece of cash. He was definitely a pauper. This woman deliberately used ginseng to deceive him. As soon as Cao Xing was taken away, Xiao Hongye heaved a sigh of relief. Jing Yunjiao looked at her and suddenly felt that it was funny. Did she think that she could just let Cao Xing be the scapegoat? Smart is smart, but isn't it a bit too whimsical? She had spent a few years in prison in her previous life, so she still had some knowledge of the law. Cao Xing's attempted theft didn't cause any major damage at all. Moreover, there was no one in the house at the time, and he didn't threaten anyone's safety. Under such circumstances, it was basically impossible for him to be sentenced. At most, she would be detained for a period of time. As for the previous case, it was even more impossible. Previously, she didn't understand why Cao Xing was hiding. If the other hooligans dared to expose Cao Xing, they wouldn't have waited until now. As long as Cao Xing refused to admit it and the other perpetrators did not push him out, her testimony would not have a decisive effect without any evidence. In other words, Cao Xing would at most be the target of the police's observation, and he would be out soon. At that time, would Xiao Hongye still be happy? Jing Yunjiao wasn't so kind as to remind Qiao Hongye. He just walked forward and took out the ginseng she was looking for from his bag. Qiao Hongye, let's not beat around the bush. Aren't you looking for this? Unfortunately, I just won't give it to you. Jing Yunjiao deliberately provoked her and said, it's such a big ginseng. When I go back tonight, I'll stew the whole thing. Its juice is a beauty product. Even if I apply it on my face as a skincare product, I won't let you touch a single bit. Are you satisfied? Chapter 106. Jing Yunjiao placed the ginseng in front of Qiao Hongye. Separated by an arm's length, Qiao Hongye could see it clearly. After saying those words, he stuffed the item back into his bag. After giving Qiao Hongye a cold smile, he turned around and went upstairs with Gan Jinchen. Qiao Hongye's eyes were wide open. She couldn't believe that Jing Yunjiao would humiliate her like that, telling her how to use the ginseng right in front of her. Coupled with the shock from today, Qiao Hongye only felt that her head was about to explode with a wong sound. She didn't manage to steal the ginseng and even offended Cao Xing. She had asked Cao Xing to do it behind her father's back. When tomorrow came, she would definitely have to explain to her father. If her father tried to steal it again, it would be fine if he could steal it, but if he couldn't, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to take the blow. Besides, Jing Yunjiao was already on guard. If by any chance the people sent by her father were caught, then she would really be finished. Qiao Hongye's heart was filled with complex feelings, but she didn't know what to do. She left the neighborhood in a daze. The faint lights by the roadside made her figure appear lonely. The neighborhood and the hotel were only separated by a few alleys, but there weren't many people in this alley at night. Qiao Hongye had just seen the hotel when she was grabbed by someone in the next second. What do you want? Qiao Hongye looked at the men behind her in panic, goosebumps rising all over her body. The leader was Hua Zei. He glanced at Qiao Hongye with a sneaky smile. Little girl, you're quite impressive. You actually managed to get Cao Xing arrested. With your character, it's a pity that you don't work in our line of work. He had been following Qiao Hongye all this time, so he naturally saw everything that happened just now. He had to admit that the girl called Jing Yunjiao was very smart, but this Qiao Hongye wasn't bad either. No wonder she could trick Cao Xing into doing so many things for her. However, in the end, she was still a little too young. After receiving such a fright, she confessed to Cao Xing, that fellow was a venomous snake that held grudges. That small crime would, at most, land him in jail for more than 10 days. By the time the detention ended, it would be too late for Qiao Hongye to cry. I don't know what you're talking about. Qiao Hongye's face paled as she shook her head. Hua Zei spat out a mouthful of thick phlegm. Don't be afraid. We're just here to collect some interest. He had long despised Cao Xing's previous actions. After the incident last time, he had even taken the opportunity to take away Cao Xing's forces. It was just that Cao Xing had hidden himself so well that he had not been caught. But now, it seemed that it was not a big deal whether he was caught or not. It would be good to leave him alive for a period of time. What are you doing? I don't know you guys at all. I have no relationship with Cao Xing at all. I'm also a victim, Qiao Hongye hurriedly said. It was definitely someone Cao Xing had provoked. Why did she have to be blamed for it? Heh. Brothers, she says she's a victim. Hua Zei despised this woman even more. She had no backbone at all. He sneered and said, Cao Xing has been helping you for 2 to 3 years, right? He helped you scare a few people in private, and they were all young. The most serious one was beaten until his leg was broken, and there are still sequelae. Your sister was almost raped by him last time. Do you think these things are flawless? With Hua Zei's words, Qiao Hongye was so scared that she didn't dare to say anything. Jing Yunjiao was not the only person she disliked. Jing Yunjiao and her master used to live under the same roof. He could make her life difficult at any time, but others couldn't. So she asked Cao Xing to help her beat up a lot of people in secret. However, not a single person knew that she was the one who did it. After becoming friends with Cao Xing, she felt that she could do whatever she wanted. Whoever she disliked would be unlucky. She never expected that others would notice these things. She thought that it would be fine as long as Cao Xing kept it a secret for her. Chapter 107. Now that Hua Zei had revealed everything she had done, Xiao Hongye's heart was in a mess. She could only think of how to shut the person in front of her up. Cao Xing wouldn't talk about what had happened before. Even if he did now, no one would believe him. But now that these people had appeared, it was a different story. If any rumors were to spread, her days would definitely be worse than Jing Yunzhao's. What do you want? Xiao Hongye was submissive, looking very obedient. Hua Zei pinched her cheeks, but he wasn't interested. This girl's heart was too big. It was completely different from her appearance. His taste wasn't that strong. Brothers, do as you see fit. The employer wanted photos. Wasn't that simple? After he finished speaking, a few people surrounded Xiao Hongye to prevent her from escaping. One of them leaned close to Xiao Hongye, lifted her chin, and leaned forward to kiss her. Catcher. Hua Zei took a photo. He smacked his lips. The angle was just right. The ambiguity was just right. Continue. Hua Zei held the camera in his hand, a playful smile on his face. In Xiao Hongye's eyes, he looked like a demon. At this moment, she couldn't help but resist. Unfortunately, she couldn't struggle at all. Her mouth was covered in an instant. The other party reached out and pulled her jacket. With a forceful tug, her fair shoulders were immediately exposed. The hooligan even pressed his face against her neck. Hua Zei took this opportunity to continuously take photos. Xiao Hongye's heart fell to the bottom. She knew that these angles would create some misconceptions. If these photos were spread, she wouldn't be able to clear her name even if she jumped into the Yellow River. It was a pity that Jing Yunzhao had spent 50,000 yuan. Hua Zei was still a man of honor. Naturally, he wouldn't just take a few photos. With the strength of a few men, Xiao Hongye couldn't break free at all. The other party was also an adult, so they knew what kind of actions would cause misunderstandings. Thus, a few of the photos looked extremely realistic. Once Xiao Hongye's expression didn't cooperate, the other party would casually pinch her, causing her to involuntarily reveal a pained expression. After tormenting her, an hour or two had passed. Xiao Hongye only felt that she was already numb, like a doll. Hua Zei and the rest left satisfied. Before they left, they searched her thoroughly for all the cash on her. Xiao Hongye became more and more dispirited. She didn't understand why today had turned out like this. However, what she didn't know was that the moment she walked into the hotel, Hua Zei and the others had taken another photo. The name of the hotel was clearly shown on the photo. Coincidentally, the photo was taken when someone was walking next to her, brushing past her shoulder as they walked past. All right, today's mission has been successfully completed. Hua Zei held a cigarette in his mouth and smiled widely. These photos were quickly sent to Jing Yunzhao's phone. Looking at Hua Zei's works, even Jing Yunzhao couldn't help but feel impressed. Are you satisfied? On the other end of the phone, Hua Zei still sounded cynical. Jing Yunzhao lowered his voice. I want you to send these photos to a few people I've designated. They must see them by chance, so troublesome. Hua Zei frowned, but then he heard Jing Yunzhao say, after you're done with this, I'll give you another 100,000. From today onwards, send someone to keep an eye on her. Make sure you know exactly who she meets and what she does. As soon as he finished speaking, Hua Zei became interested in the little boy on the other end of the phone. Deal, Hua Zei replied straightforwardly. Jing Yunzhao pursed his lips and revealed a slight smile. Chapter 108. The reason why she didn't copy the photo and spread it around was to let Xiao Hongye experience the feeling of someone talking nonsense without any evidence. Moreover, if the photo fell into the hands of other students, it would definitely attract the teacher's attention. At that time, although it would damage Xiao Hongye's reputation, it would be more of an investigation against people outside the school. After all, Xiao Hongye was still a minor. After hanging up the phone, Jing Yunzhao entered the space as usual to study medicine. After completely absorbing the first piece of spirit jade, she felt that the second piece was much easier, and her speed was also faster than before. The space was flourishing and filled with the smell of medicinal herbs, making one's mind clearer. However, as soon as Jing Yunjiao appeared, an ice blue bug crawled out from the ground. The little fella was a lot fatter than the first time they met. When it saw Jing Yunjiao practicing her martial arts moves, its chubby body started twisting along with her movements. It was very funny. Jing Yunjiao had spent so much time with these little bugs, and she slowly observed that this one was different from the others. Its color was purer, and its body was bigger than the others. There was even a blue coil around its tail, as if it was encircling its tail. The other little bugs all listened to its guidance. It was completely the king of bugs. Time passed slowly in the space, and it was also thanks to this little guy that she was able to relieve her boredom. Little guy, shall I give you a name? Jing Yunjiao placed the little bug on the stone table at the side and asked while nodding its head. This bug had absorbed Jing Yunjiao's blood essence and had already recognized her as its master. Naturally, it could understand her words. Its upper body was raised, and it shook up and down a few times to express its agreement. Jing Yunjiao's gaze became much gentler. This little guy was too cute. After thinking about it, Jing Yunjiao was a little conflicted. She didn't know what to call it. After staring at the little guy for a while, she tentatively asked, "How about Xiaolan?" A name that was too complicated always felt weird. The little guy shook again, and in the next moment, it climbed onto Jing Yunjiao's shoulder, trying its best to rub against her face and act obedient. The spirit jade mentioned that Xiaolan was a spirit insect brought back by the ancestor from a different world. It was human-like and relied on absorbing medicinal properties to maintain its life, so it was also known as a medicine insect. They also needed to eat. In the past, before Jing Yunjiao entered her space, there weren't any medicinal herbs in the space, so many of the bugs had starved to death. The rest of the bugs relied on the residual medicinal herbs in the soil to replenish themselves. Now that Jing Yunjiao was planting medicinal herbs, the bugs were the happiest. However, even though they were gluttons, they never harmed the medicinal fields. Jing Yunjiao opened up a separate area for their daily needs, so these little bugs were very obedient. After playing with Xiaolan for a while, the man and the insect continued to practice martial arts and memorize books. It was an extremely quiet paradise. The next day, Qiao Weimin appeared in front of Qiao Hongye to ask where Jing Yunjiao was staying. Qiao Hongye hemmed and hawed, only saying that she didn't manage to find out. Just a moment ago, Qiao Weimin was still welcoming her with a smile, but the moment he heard Qiao Hongye's words, his face immediately turned cold. "You didn't find out? What have you been doing here the whole day?" "Dad, I'm not a detective, how would I have that ability? Also, I met Jing Yunjiao before, and she even showed off her ginseng to me. She said that she would stew it for beautifying and beautifying." Qiao Hongyi mumbled. When she said this, Qiao Weimin only felt anger and heartache. "She really said that?" Qiao Hongyi hurriedly nodded. Qiao Weimin's face turned green. "Prodigal plaything, that's something worth hundreds of thousands. She actually used it for beautifying? Is she even worthy? You too, didn't I ask you to follow her? Look at what happened now, such a good thing was ruined by her." Chapter 109. The more Qiao Weimin thought about it, the angrier he got. However, he didn't know where Jing Yunjiao lived. He was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. He was afraid that the next time he saw Jing Yunjiao, the ginseng would be gone. Having fooled Qiao Weimin, Qiao Hongye couldn't help but relax a little as she whispered, "Dad, I don't have any money." Her money had been snatched away by that man yesterday, and she had no money left for next week's living expenses. "Out of money? What on earth did you buy outside? Didn't I just give it to you the day before yesterday?" Qiao Weimin was getting more and more disappointed with this daughter of his. He always felt that the person in front of him was not the same person as before. Ever since Yi Qin's death, the situation in this house had been getting worse and worse. There was not a single day of peace. It seemed that this house could not do without a mistress. Qiao Hongye lowered her head. I lost the money." She didn't dare to tell the truth. If her father made a fuss, she would be the one to lose face. Qiao Weimin was full of anger. Losing money at this time was simply bad luck. No wonder he couldn't get any benefits from Jing Yunjiao. Qiao Hongye had been pampered since she was young and rarely suffered grievances. But now, she was being scolded because of Jing Yunjiao every 2 to 3 days. Her heart was already feeling unbalanced. She was thinking that when she went to school, she must make Jing Yunjiao even more embarrassed. However, at this moment, Qiao Hongye still didn't know that the one who would be embarrassed was herself. Hua Zei was very reliable. Because of the information provided by Jing Yunjiao, Hua Zei's men were waiting for the students on their way to school. Look. TSK, this girl is so young, I didn't expect her to be so bold. She should still be a student, right? This is a student from number 1 middle school. On the surface, he looks pure, but behind his back, he's simply a slut. Another gangster added. At the side were 2 students walking side by side. One was called Zhong Hao, and the other was called Dong Yi. Both of them were Qiao Hongye's loyal escorts, and were also classmates with Qiao Hongye. The 2 of them didn't notice the things in the hands of the person beside them, but when they heard the words number 1 high school, they couldn't help but turn their heads. The 2 hooligans suddenly stopped in their tracks and fell, coincidentally scattering the photos in their hands all over the floor. The 2 students picked up the photos out of curiosity and kindness, but when they saw the photos, they felt as if they had been struck by lightning. Isn't this Qiao Hongye? Zhong Hao couldn't help but say. These were their 2 goddesses, it was impossible for them to be mistaken. Oh, do you know this woman? The hooligan immediately sized up the 2 of them and said, is this girl very casual in school? Zhong Hao hurriedly shook his head with a red face. No, Qiao Hongye is very gentle and sensible. She looks gentle enough, but it probably has nothing to do with being sensible. Let me tell you, this photo was accidentally taken by a group of brothers. We saw that this woman looks good, and it's good to use her for eye candy. Seeing that you're quite interested, I'll let you take a look. The gangster said again. One by one, they were displayed clearly in front of him. Some of them were just kissing men on the side of the road, while others were disheveled. It was obvious what they were doing. Zhong Hao and Dong Yi's breathing became a little tense. They couldn't believe what they were seeing, especially when there was a photo of her entering a hotel with a man. It made the 2 of them so sad that they couldn't breathe. Who wouldn't like a girl like Qiao Hongye? Alright, if you're done looking, then return it to me. The gangster took the photo back, glanced at them, and reminded them, this girl is very powerful. Some of us brothers know her, and we all say that her methods are brilliant. She made a few brothers do things for her willingly, and even broke a boy's leg. Oh right, she even robbed her own sister. I think you guys should stay away from her. Chapter 110. These 2 hooligans knew how to conduct themselves. They knew when to stop. After they were done talking, they happily left with the photos, as if nothing had happened. The 2 boys, Zhong Hao and Dong Yi, stared at each other with their eyes wide open. I'm not dreaming, right? Zhong Hao said with a dumbfounded face. Dong Yi muttered, I hope it's a dream, but it's not. Qiao Hongye, she's not like what we think. In their memories, Qiao Hongye was like a puddle of spring water. When she spoke, her voice was always soft and gentle. Her pair of eyes were filled with thick sweetness. One look would make people fall in love with her, and they wished they could give her the best thing they had. Her grades were good, her looks were good, her temperament was good, and her personality was good. Everything about her was like a character depicted in a novel. Being with her always lacked a sense of reality, but it made people feel relaxed and happy. Zhong Hao and Dong Yi were good buddies, and they both knew that the other party liked Qiao Hongye. However, in order to avoid bringing trouble to Qiao Hongye, the 2 of them even agreed to compete fairly. They both hoped that one day, they could win this beautiful first love. They even thought of going to the same university as Qiao Hongye in the future and becoming a pair of childhood sweethearts that everyone would envy. But reality suddenly gave them a hard slap in the face. The actions in the photos were something they didn't even dare to think about. They always felt that it was blasphemy to their goddess, and it would make the love in their hearts ugly and perverted. The 2 of them seemed to have lost their souls. Rather than believe that Qiao Hongye was such a person, they would rather believe that she was together with their brother. At least the latter's goddess was still clean. What should we do? Do you still want to continue chasing her? After walking for a long time, just as they were about to enter the school gate, Zhong Hao suddenly asked. Dong Yi shook his head. I don't know. I just can't accept her like this. Didn't you hear what those two said? Qiao Hongye even broke someone's leg. Oh right, do you remember that Zhu Chengzhe from class 3? When he was in his first year of high school, he already liked Qiao Hongye. Every day, he would write love letters, deliver lunch, and even tell us to stay away from Qiao Hongye. In front of many classmates, he even said that Qiao Hongye was his girlfriend. But not long after, he was beaten up by a group of hooligans, and the culprits were never caught. I remember him. His leg was seriously injured. He had to rest at home for a few months. When he came back, he was limping. Many of his classmates laughed at him behind his back. He couldn't take it and quit school. Zhong Hao smiled bitterly. And Jing Yunjiao. Qiao Hongye always pretended to be very concerned about her in front of us, but in reality, she actually found someone to rob Jing Yunjiao. No matter what, she's still a girl. What if something happened? Dong Yi mumbled again. As soon as he spoke, the two of them felt as if something had broken through the soil. For example, why did Jing Yunjiao speak coldly to Qiao Hongye now? Why did the school agree to let Jing Yunjiao leave the Qiao family? Why did the rumors about Jing Yunjiao spread? They were the people closest to Qiao Hongye. They knew better than anyone that a lot of things were unintentionally said by Qiao Hongye. Because they trusted Qiao Hongye, they felt that the things Jing Yunjiao did were far worse than what Qiao Hongye said. But what was the truth? They didn't know that many times, in order to help Qiao Hongye vent her anger, they deliberately exaggerated and wronged Jing Yunjiao. Chapter 111. Now that the two of them realized that Qiao Hongye wasn't like what they had imagined, their feelings towards Jing Yunjiao were a little complicated. In the past, they didn't think that Jing Yunjiao was a good person, so they didn't feel ashamed when they spoke ill of her. But now, they couldn't help but feel guilty. At the same time, there were 2 or 3 other female students who had also discovered Qiao Hongye's photo. Compared to Zhong Hao and Dong Yi, they didn't feel as sad. Instead, they felt that they had been deceived. As girls, they liked Qiao Hongye only because of her kindness and innocence, which stimulated their sense of justice. Now that they found out that the sheep was actually a wolf, their feelings instantly became a lot more complicated. Not only did they lose their so-called friendship towards Qiao Hongye, they even felt a bit of disgust towards her. Moreover, under Qiao Hongye's influence, these girls had more or less developed the habit of speaking ill of others behind their backs. In a fit of anger, they spread the news about Qiao Hongye the moment they arrived at school. The reason why Jing Yunjiao found these students was precisely because of their gossipy nature. With this move of hers, Qiao Hongye's flower protectors were almost completely dismissed. In the future, it would be difficult for Qiao Hongye to spread rumors, and she might even be unable to protect herself. Qiao Hongye went to school as usual. Her long hair was straight, and she wore fresh clothes. She looked like an obedient girl. She never liked to arrive at school too early, because in comparison, she preferred to walk to her seat under the gaze of her classmates. Naturally, today was the same. But she didn't know that because she arrived late, almost everyone in the class already knew about her glorious deed. Just as she sat down, Qiao Hongye stretched her hand towards the drawer, subconsciously wanting to take out the things inside. But when she tried, it was empty. She was stunned and somewhat puzzled. In the past, Zhong Hao and Dong Yi would put a bottle of milk in there every morning. Why wasn't there one today? Did they forget? Qiao Hongye was a little disappointed, but she didn't show it on her face. She turned to her deskmate and said, "Xin Xin, help me tell Zhong Hao and the others that they don't have to send milk every day anymore. A bottle costs a few yuan." The girl named Xin Xin rolled her eyes. Why didn't she see that Qiao Hongye knew how to act? Sure enough, people in love are blind, and people who are blinded by friendship are also blind. Hongye, before you came, Zhong Hao and the others told me that they kept the milk for themselves. If you want to drink it, you can buy it yourself, her deskmate said directly. After she finished speaking, she moved the things on her desk to another direction to avoid any contact with Qiao Hongye. She felt disgusted at the thought of this seemingly innocent girl being so bold as to be intimate with a boy on the street. She used to hold hands with her often. She didn't know if she would get a rash. Xiao Hongye's heart trembled, and she couldn't react in time. Xin, what are you saying? Did I do something wrong to make you angry? Without waiting for her deskmate to speak, Xiao Hongye suddenly came to a realization and said, I know, did your parents quarrel again? Don't be sad. We can't control the adults' affairs. Moreover, the adults' affairs are very complicated. Even if they really quarrel and divorce in the future, they will still love you. You just have to be a carefree student now. Although Xiao Hongye was dissatisfied, she still spoke according to her usual routine. Xiao Hongye. Her deskmate instantly slammed the table and shouted. She continued, what does my parents have to do with you? Besides, they're only quarreling. Do they need you to lecture them? You even cursed my parents to divorce. I think you just can't bear to see others living well. Chapter 112. When you like someone, you can treat all of her words as concern. But now, this deskmate hated Xiao Hongye to death, so naturally, she felt that her words were very harsh. Previously, when she mentioned her parents, Xiao Hongye kept reminding her, asking her if her father was seeing someone outside. She even told her to go back and remind her mother. In the end, she was reprimanded. Now that she thought about it, the deskmate felt that Xiao Hongye was doing it on purpose. Furthermore, in the past, she was the wild grass that served as a foil for Xiao Hongye, but no one was willing to serve as a foil from the moment they were born. If Xiao Hongye was a genuine and pure girl, then so be it, but what was she? Everything she did was not something a student could do. It was simply dirtying her eyes. Xiao Hongye was shocked by her deskmate, and her eyes turned red in an instant. Xin, I'm only concerned about you. Xiao Hongye felt wronged. If Xiao Hongye showed such an expression on a normal day, someone would immediately stand up for her, but today was different. Xiao Hongye was like a virus, disgusting everyone. Zhong Hao and Dong Yi, the two loyal flower protectors, felt even more regretful. Why did they like such a two-faced person in the past? Pretentious. Her deskmate looked at her with disdain, then went up and directly dragged Xiao Hongye's desk to the back of the class. A dirty person like you is only fit to stay with trash. After saying that, she casually threw the leftover water bottle from the morning towards the trash can. With a bang, the remaining water splashed onto Xiao Hongye's desk, scaring her silly. But this girl took the lead, and for some reason, the other students also started to throw trash. Not long after, her desk was covered with all kinds of fruit peels, water stains, and toilet paper. It was so dirty that Xiao Hongye trembled. No matter how stupid Xiao Hongye was, she knew that something was wrong. In the past, her classmates were very good to her. Even if there was a conflict, it was usually the other party who apologized. This kind of scene had never happened before. Also, it was fine if Xin went against her, but Zhong Hao did not help her. Dong Yi did not stand up. And the others, they were not like this before. Could it be that today was April Fool's Day? School had started for so long, April Fool's Day had long passed. Xiao Hongye stood helplessly beside her desk. Seeing her classmates looking at her with disdain, she felt as if she was having a nightmare. However, no one was willing to talk to her, so she had no idea what the reason was. Time passed extremely slowly, and this scene only ended when the teacher arrived. Xiao Hongye usually made the teacher happy, so after her weeping pear blossom complaint, the student called Xin was naturally punished. However, this didn't mean that Xiao Hongye had won, because everyone was even more disgusted by her snitching. The isolation in school was terrible. Jing Yunjiao had tried it before. No matter what he did, he was always alone. He had to worry about his bag being pranked by others. He had to worry about whether someone would suddenly trip him while he was walking. He had to be on guard against other students almost all the time. Perhaps it might seem like a simple trick to others, but for him, it felt like he had been abandoned by the whole world. Only now, the person who was abandoned was Xiao Hongye. Class 2 was just next door, so they would be the first to pass on any news. When he found out that Xiao Hongye had become the target of public criticism, Jing Yunjiao naturally heard the news as well. He only felt that the stuffiness he had been suppressing dissipated in an instant. Chapter 113. Once Qiao Hongye's reputation fell, it directly affected Jing Yunjiao. On this day, almost everyone looked at Jing Yunjiao with sympathy in their eyes. The students in these few classes were all talking about how Qiao Hongye had secretly hired gangsters to rob Jing Yunjiao. Even Qiao Hongye's deskmate, Zhong Hao, Dong Yi, and the others tried to explain that Jing Yunjiao was innocent. Many of the rumors about Jing Yunjiao from before were instantly turned into fake news. She deserves it. When Xiao Haiqing heard that Qiao Hongye was being ostracized in class, she immediately became excited. Yunjiao, I just went to class 2's door to take a look. Qiao Hongye was lying on the table crying, a pear blossom bathed in the rain. In the end, no one bothered with her. Those boys who used to support her were afraid to have anything to do with her. How satisfying. This person was found by Xiao Haiqing on behalf of Jing Yunjiao. Naturally, she knew that the rumors about Qiao Hongye were not true. However, it was precisely because it was unreal that she felt even more venting. After all, Jing Yunjiao had been suffering from this kind of misunderstanding and pain ever since she entered the school. Now that the retribution had landed on Qiao Hongye's body, it was time for her to have a taste of being wronged and isolated. Haiqing, thank you very much. Jing Yunjiao smiled at her. Xiao Haiqing rolled her eyes. What are you thanking me for? We're so close. Oh right, even though Qiao Hongye was unlucky, there are still people who don't believe that you're innocent. Those people really have a pair of eyes for nothing. Xiao Haiqing said angrily. Ever since she met Jing Yunjiao, Xiao Haiqing's patience was getting worse day by day. She had a bad temper, and whoever provoked her was dead meat. However, Jing Yunjiao was like a glass of cold water, cold and indifferent. He did not have her passion at all, so she was very anxious for her these days. Isn't the next class physical education? If I'm really pregnant, I won't be able to do any strenuous exercise, Jing Yunjiao said unhurriedly. Class 1 and Class 2 happened to be in this PE class. In the past, every time the two classes met, they would compete. This time would be no exception. When the time came, her classmates would know whether she was pregnant or not. She didn't need to explain at all. Xiao Haiqing gave a thumbs up to show her approval. Soon, the bell for class rang, and the students of both classes rushed to the field. Qiao Hongye was distracted and followed behind the crowd. Coincidentally, she bumped into Jing Yunjiao. Although Jing Yunjiao was still very skinny, she had practiced martial arts for a few months in the space. Her strength was very strong, and she had intentionally exerted her strength. Qiao Hongye fell to the ground directly. In an instant, Qiao Hongye's eyes reddened again. Jing Yunjiao was rather impressed. Her sister's tears came as she wished, and she could control them as she wished. Unfortunately, Jing Yunjiao ignored her, and so did the people around her. Jing Yunjiao. Behind her, Qiao Hongye helplessly struggled to get up and called out. What's the matter? Jing Yunjiao turned her body sideways. Her eyes were full of disdain, provoking Qiao Hongye. Was it you who did it? I treat you like an older sister. Why did you treat me like this? Why did you wrongly accuse me? Qiao Hongye bit her lip. During these few classes, she had secretly heard a lot of rumors. Only now did she know what others were saying about her. After thinking about it, she found the crux of the matter. It must be the doing of those people she had met that night when she returned to the hotel. The photos those people took must have been seen by her classmates. Moreover, those hooligans must have been hired by Jing Yunjiao. She had caught Cao Xing and found out about her past deeds from him. So she used the same method to deal with her. Jing Yunjiao was really too vicious. Chapter 114. When Jing Yunjiao heard Qiao Hongye's words, she couldn't help but reveal a mocking smile. Playing with eagles all day long only to be pecked in the eye by a sparrow. Are you blaming me? Jing Yunjiao said casually before turning around to leave. Qiao Hongye had always been scheming against others. Now that she had failed miserably, she was asking for trouble. But even at this time, she still didn't forget to continue pretending to be innocent. This perseverance was really admirable. Although there were many students around, Jing Yunjiao's words undoubtedly confirmed Qiao Hongye's previous actions. At this time, her grievances and tears could no longer make anyone sympathize with her. They even felt that this girl was constantly putting on an act, which was a little scary. Qiao Hongye secretly cursed Jing Yunjiao a few times before lowering her head and walking to the field. The PE teachers of the two classes were a pair of quarrelsome lovers. They had a good relationship but liked to compete with each other. Every week, this class would torment the students quite a bit. Today was no exception. When the bell rang, the two teachers led the students to do some simple warm-up exercises. After a few minutes, they directly asked the students to run 5 laps around the field. Jing Yunjiao's body used to be thin and weak. Every PE class couldn't last long. Even the teachers couldn't do anything about her. But this period of time was different from the past. Jing Yunjiao could not only keep up with the team, but she was also full of energy after a round of exercise. This made the PE teachers of Class 1 very proud. One must know that Class 1's Jing Yunjiao and Class 2's Qiao Hongye, these two top students, were the cancerous tumors of PE class. The former couldn't last long, and the latter would either have a headache or a stomachache once she went on stage. Qiao Hongye hated PE class the most, so every time she went to class, she would feel uncomfortable. The other students would immediately speak up for her, and the teachers couldn't do anything about it. Often, after a class, everyone would be exhausted to death. Only Qiao Hongye would sit at the side, tenderly looking at everyone. The girls were sweating profusely and looked like they had lost their usual image. Compared to them, Qiao Hongye's freshness naturally made the boys more fond of her. "Teacher, Qiao Hongye opened her mouth as usual. "All right, you can sit aside." Before he could finish, the PE teacher waved his hand, indicating that he understood. To be honest, the PE teacher didn't like such a weak girl, but she had good grades and was liked by her classmates. Every time he talked about this with the class teacher, even the class teacher didn't let him interfere. What could he do? He could only turn a blind eye to it. When the teacher from Class 2 said this, the female teacher from Class 1 grinned. "Jing Yunjiao, can your body keep up?" She had done it on purpose. They were both good students and had poor health, but Jing Yunjiao had been able to keep up with her progress during this period of time. "Sure." Jing Yunjiao nodded. The female teacher glanced at the male teacher of Class 2 proudly and continued, "Since that's the case, Jing Yunjiao, you'll lead the team." After that, the group of people began to run under the lead of Jing Yunjiao. But at this time, Class 2 was unhappy. Why could Jing Yunjiao run, but Qiao Hongye couldn't? Qiao Hongye looked a little fatter than Jing Yunjiao, and her complexion was better than Jing Yunjiao's. Every time she pretended to be sick, couldn't she be a little more creative? "Teacher, I don't accept this." Qiao Hongye's deskmate felt cheated and immediately stood up. "Qiao Hongye was fine this morning, and I don't see her feeling uncomfortable. Why can't she run now that she's pretending to be sick?" Chapter 115. Qiao Hongye, this deskmate, was still a little provocative. Some people even thought, even Qiao Hongye's best friend hates her. It's clear how hypocritical she is. Yeah, we're all running, so why can she sit at the side? If the teacher is biased, then we don't have to go to class today, another person said. The moment this was said, the students below all echoed. The male teacher's eyes widened. It was a little strange. Did the sun rise from the west today? Usually, he was the one who wanted Qiao Hongye to try, but no one else would let him. This teacher was a man after all, so he didn't really understand the thoughts of girls. Now that he saw so many people reprimanding Qiao Hongye, he thought that his previous teachings were useful. "Qiao Hongye, look, everyone can run. Shouldn't you work harder too?" The male teacher tried to open his mouth. He glanced at Jing Yunjiao, who was leading the team, and said, "Jing Yunjiao's health wasn't good in the past, but she tried her best every time. Look at how obvious the results are now. You should learn from her." This time, Qiao Hongye really felt wronged and wanted to cry. Unfortunately, she cried so much that no one believed her anymore. Now that the teacher compared her to Jing Yunjiao, it provoked Qiao Hongye's self-esteem even more. Seeing how the others were targeting her, she could only grit her teeth and walk back to the team. Since you're here, then lead the team too. Our Class 2 students mustn't lose to Class 1, the male teacher encouraged, feeling very happy in his heart. His students being so obedient was really a big improvement in his education. Qiao Hongye's face was bitter as she stood in front of the 2 rows of students. She was a little nervous and a little angry as she shouted, 1, 2, 1. Qiao Hongye, why is your voice like a mosquito? Who can hear you? Her deskmate mocked. She wasn't lying, so she wasn't deliberately targeting her. Class 1 was less than 10 meters in front of them, but Jing Yunjiao's voice was very loud and clear. It didn't feel noisy at all, but crisp and pleasant to the ears. On the other hand, Qiao Hongye was weak and didn't have any energy. It was as if her classmates were collectively bullying her. Moreover, she ran very slowly, so no one could overtake her. As a result, her steps felt as if they were filled with lead, and she was tired after just running. Qiao Hongye was about to die from anger. She couldn't hold back her temper any longer as she screamed at the top of her lungs, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. Can you run faster? Do you think you're a noble lady? Are you trying to tire us to death by taking small steps? Someone in the crowd said. Qiao Hongye's face flushed red. Ever since she entered high school, she had practically never run. How could she be the same as Jing Yunjiao, that coarse girl? She had only been running for a short while and she was already exhausted. How could she be faster? At this moment, Qiao Hongye's resentment towards Jing Yunjiao increased by another level. She didn't understand. In the past, Jing Yunjiao would faint from exhaustion after running a few steps. Why was his endurance getting stronger and stronger recently? Could it be that he was pretending in the past? When Qiao Hongye thought about it this way, she was even more certain that her guess was correct. She had even forgotten that in the Qiao family, Jing Yunjiao would often go hungry. He also lacked nutrition, so he couldn't withstand strenuous exercise. At this moment, Jing Yunjiao, the team leader, attracted the attention of many people. That person who said that Jing Yunjiao was pregnant behind her back is too vicious. Look at her, how could it be possible? People from other classes who were familiar with Jing Yunjiao couldn't help but open their mouths. 5 laps wasn't a small number, but Jing Yunjiao was still doing it effortlessly. If she was pregnant, she wouldn't be able to do it, right? Chapter 116. Jing Yunjiao's space was many times bigger than the field. Although the martial arts training was based on this move, it was more about the body's constitution and aura. She had to run for a period of time in the space every day, and according to the cultivation technique, she could even run another 5 laps without a problem. I heard from the people in Class 2 that the news of Jing Yunjiao's pregnancy was also spread by Qiao Hongye. Jing Yunjiao was running when she heard someone pointing at her and whispering to her. It can't be. It's true. My friend said that when Qiao Hongye saw Jing Yunjiao and Gan Jinchen come to school together, she started to make wild guesses. Other people didn't know the situation, so they thought it was true. The girl said again. Class 2 had been left in the dust by Class 1, so they were still at the back of Class 1's buttocks. Qiao Hongye also heard what she said. She secretly gritted her teeth, feeling extremely stifled, but there was no other way. Qiao Hongye stared at Jing Yunjiao unwillingly from behind. Her steps were getting heavier and heavier, but Jing Yunjiao was still unhurried. He looked like he was taking a stroll and didn't look tired at all. Suddenly, she felt like she was looking at the dust in the distance. After a few laps, Qiao Hongye's legs didn't belong to her anymore. Her classmates didn't let her go and forced her to participate in the following activities. The sarcastic words made her feel like her head was going to explode. She was muddle-headed. At this moment, a car stopped outside the field. The figure inside the car stared at the figure on the field with a complicated expression. What's wrong, young Master Li? Don't tell me you've taken a fancy to one of the female students. His companion couldn't help but laugh. His gaze swept across the field and couldn't help but sigh. It was good to be a student. Even from afar, he could feel the youthful atmosphere. Since we're passing by, I'll find someone on the way. Young Master Lee's lips curled. He let the driver drive the car to the school gate and leisurely looked at the field, not anxious to wait. Find someone? You don't have any relatives studying here, do you? The man named Du Lin asked in surprise. Although the Li family's ancestral home was in Hua Ning County, Li Xiaoyun only came back for a short period of time every year. He didn't have many friends in Hua Ning County, and the only one he was really familiar with was probably him. Moreover, Li Xiaoyun's temper seemed like a playboy, but in reality, he had never been close to women. His patience was even smaller than a sesame seed, and he had never waited for anyone. Hasn't Uncle been feeling unwell recently? It just so happens that I know a godly doctor. I'll bring him over for Uncle to take a look. Li Xiaoyun casually found an excuse for himself. Du Lin's face stiffened. Young Master Li, are you kidding me? My dad just has a toothache. Didn't you say that toothache isn't an illness? Once it hurts, it'll kill you. Uncle is good to me, so it's only right for me to take the trouble, Li Xiaoyun said calmly. After saying that, Du Lin was speechless. Although what he said was true, his father had only seen Li Xiaoyun 3 times. They didn't have a good relationship at all. Moreover, shouldn't the so-called miracle doctor be living in seclusion deep in the mountains or in a clinic? However, this was a school. If it was a university, it would be fine, but it was a high school. Du Lin's curiosity was overflowing. He followed Li Xiaoyun's gaze and looked at the students. However, after looking for a long time, he didn't find anyone with the characteristics of a godly doctor. Moreover, they were all a bunch of snotty kids below the age of 18. They weren't even adults yet. After another 10 to 20 minutes, the bell rang. It was time for school to end in the afternoon. Li Xiaoyun's car was low-key and luxurious. These students couldn't see anything special about it. However, when Li Xiaoyun opened the car door and waited outside, his handsome appearance attracted the attention of many female students. Chapter 117. Du Lin thought that the person Li Xiaoyun was waiting for was probably not a student. After all, someone who was related to medicine should be at least a few decades old. Maybe he was a teacher at this school. After thinking for a while, he saw Li Xiaoyun suddenly walk towards a figure. His eyes lit up and he turned to look. But with one look, the smile on his face instantly froze. His expression was particularly interesting. Not only him, but even the driver's mouth twitched a little. Clearly, he felt that Li Xiaoyun's words were too unreliable. Mr. Li? Jing Yunzhao's eyes darkened. She looked up at the man blocking her way and showed some surprise. Li Xiaoyun was only wearing a thin white shirt, and one could vaguely see the muscles on his arms. Under his long and thick eyebrows, his eyes seemed to carry a natural smile, dazzling people who looked at him. The corner of Li Xiaoyun's lips curled up. Jing Yunzhao felt that this man was like a luminous body. He was really too eye-catching, especially since they were at the school gate. Girls of this age would be infatuated with good-looking people or things. She didn't want to fall back into the rumors she had just gotten rid of. She pushed her body back to maintain a safe distance. Li Xiaoyun's eyes flashed with surprise. Classmate Jing, can I borrow some of your time? Feeling the surrounding gazes, Jing Yunzhao frowned slightly and nodded. She reluctantly got into the car. After all, with the car window blocking, she wouldn't be admired like a gorilla. Mr. Li, are you looking for me for something? Jing Yunzhao asked politely. Li Xiaoyun was embarrassed in his heart. Something? Of course not. He didn't know what kind of evil he had done. Today, he happened to pass by the road and thought that school was about to end, so he came to take a look. Ever since he saw Jing Yunzhao at Uncle Shu's place, he became more and more curious about this little girl. Especially since he would be returning to the capital in a few days, he couldn't help but feel that he should come and say goodbye to this little girl. Of course, he knew that they weren't familiar with each other. But no matter what, Uncle Shu had entrusted her to him, right? He even asked him to take good care of her. Li Xiaoyun touched his nose and smiled. It's like this. This is my friend Du Lin. His father isn't feeling well. I want to invite you to take a look. Du Lin's mouth twitched and he rolled his eyes. Pretend. Continue to pretend? Friends? She had never been so polite to him before. However, on the surface, he still had to cooperate with young Master Li. After all, he was his investor and major shareholder. Grinning, Du Lin replied, "That's right." Li Xiaoyun smiled with satisfaction. Jing Yunjiao's expression was strange as she looked at the two of them, feeling that they were acting out of the blue. However, since they were guests, even though she felt that this Li Xiao was a playboy, they had still met a few times, so he was still polite to her. Plus, he was someone Uncle Shu knew, so it wouldn't be good if she didn't give him face. "Mr. Li, here's the thing. Although I know a little about medicine, I'm not qualified to practice medicine. I'm afraid I can't do as you wish." "I'm sorry." Jing Yunjiao tried to be as polite as possible. "It's all right. Uncle Du only has some minor ailments. You can prescribe the medicine as you see fit. If it's suitable, just use it. If it's not, don't force it. Nothing will happen. Even if something does happen, it won't be blamed on you. Don't worry," Li Xiaoyun said shamelessly. After that, he signaled the driver to drive. Du Lin felt that today was the first time he got to know Li Xiaoyun. In the past, he felt that he was noble and elegant. Although he looked a little like a ruffian, he wasn't someone that wild children from small places like them could touch. But now, he felt that this seemingly pure and simple person actually had a passionate heart. Look at this girl. She was so good-looking that she didn't even care about her age. This level of shamelessness when it came to picking up girls was simply my generation's role model. Chapter 118. As soon as the car started, Jing Yunjiao's expression didn't look too good. However, she was used to enduring, so she didn't express too much dissatisfaction. After all, it was related to her medical skills. Although she hadn't studied medicine for long, she still had the ability. However, due to her age and status, there weren't any patients for her to treat. Now, even if it was just a small opportunity, she didn't want to let it go. Jing Yunjiao sat in the front passenger seat while the two men sat in the back. Li Xiaoyun looked sloppy, but at this moment, he didn't speak much. Du Lin couldn't help but feel awkward. He secretly glanced at the two and grinned. "Classmate, what's your name?" It had to be said that this female classmate's appearance should be at the level of a school beauty. She was thin, cold, and had an imposing aura. Could it be that she was also the daughter of some big family in Beijing? Jing Yunjiao. Her voice was faint as she replied. Du Lin hurriedly took out a name card. "My name is Du Lin. I'm a local. You can call me Brother Du or Brother Lin. Since we know each other, I won't be polite with you. Calling you classmate is quite distant, so I'll just call you Yunjiao." Du Lin had a fawning face and was very enthusiastic. Jing Yunjiao politely nodded. Looking at the name card in her hand, her eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. Du Lin, this person was also very famous in her previous life. He was a young entrepreneur who ran a large-scale restaurant. However, at that time, this person's career was still in the rising stage. The brand he founded was only very popular in the Ning City area. At that time, when she saw the newspaper, she was envious of this young and promising person. She guessed that his future would be limitless. However, looking at the information written on the name card, it could be seen that in this life, Du Lin's Imperial Sky Fresh restaurant had just started. Jing Yunjiao suspiciously looked at the two people. Li Xiaoyun's Heavenly Fragrance Restaurant and Drunken Sky Immortal should have some conflicts, right? The two were actually friends. When he felt Jing Yunjiao's suspicious gaze, Li Xiaoyun's lips curled up slightly. Du Lin's ancestors were once imperial chefs, and the dishes and secret recipes he knows follow the group's instructions and cannot be sold. Although Heaven Fragrant Restaurant is high-end, its dishes are not unique, and its services are more comprehensive. The two are not quite the same. To put it simply, Yu Tianxian only provided meals, not lodging. On the other hand, Li Xiaoyun's Heavenly Fragrance Restaurant included entertainment, rest, dining, and other one-stop services. "I'm going to start cooking in the county now, and then expand it in Ning City. In the future, I'll expand it to all parts of the country and even overseas. I'll run a chain business. When food and beverage is mentioned, everyone will think of Yu Tianxian first, Du Lin teased. I believe you, Jing Yunjiao replied. Du Lin, on the other hand, was taken aback. Children are so gullible. This goal of mine is still very difficult to achieve. Just like now, I'm facing a big problem. Yu Tianxian has enough funds, the best location, and the unique secret recipe, but he doesn't have the best ingredients. Huaning County was surrounded by mountains and rivers. Logically speaking, the quality of the ingredients should be good, but although there weren't many toxins, it was still far from the level of the imperial banquet. No matter what he did, his father would shake his head and sigh with disdain. If he used Li Xiaoyun's connections to pick the best ingredients from other places and fly them over, the price would be unacceptable. After Jing Yunjiao heard this, she carefully put away the business card, and her eyes shone. Li Xiaoyun forcing her into the car wasn't a bad thing. According to what she knew, all of Du Lin's ingredients in her previous life were first-grade products selected from all over the world, and the cost was extremely high. As a result, although Yu Tianxian was famous, it wasn't down to earth. In other words, part of the reason why it was famous was because of its sky-high price. Ordinary people couldn't afford such a feast, and the business was limited. Chapter 119. Yu Tianxian was indeed capable, and Du Lin was also an outstanding talent. If everything went according to her previous life, Du Lin would definitely stand out, but he was still a distance away from reaching the level he spoke of. But now, Jing Yunjiao was confident. She and Du Lin, one lacked opportunities, while the other lacked raw materials. They were a perfect match. Jing Yunjiao's current attitude was a little more amiable. Li Xiaoyun raised his eyebrows, and a trace of darkness flashed in his eyes. This girl actually became interested in Du Lin after seeing his name card. Li Xiaoyun couldn't remain calm. It was just a name card with Yu Tianxian written on it. Compared to Yu Tianxian, shouldn't his heavenly fragrance restaurant be more famous? Li Xiaoyun had never been ignored by anyone in his life, and he had never treated anyone so differently. Speaking of which, he had only met Jing Yunjiao 2 or 3 times. The reason why he came over this time was because he felt that this girl should be someone with a bright future. That's why he wanted to get closer to her now. If there was anything he could help her with in the future, it would be easier for him to lend a helping hand. But he didn't expect her to look down on him. But this was also good. Du Lin had some connections in Huaning County. When he went to the capital, Jing Yunjiao could ask Du Lin for help if she needed anything. After all, she was the girl that Uncle Shu cared about. The Li and Shu families had a good relationship, so Li Xiaoyun naturally felt that this girl was one of them. Li Xiaoyun restrained his temper and raised his eyes to ask, "You're interested in Yu Tianxian?" Jing Yunjiao thought for a moment before saying, "My master is interested in growing herbs, grains, vegetables, and the like. He has researched very good planting techniques, and the things he grows are absolutely free of pollution and harm. After hearing Big Brother Du's words, I think I can replace my master and work with Yu Tianxian." Ah! Du Lin was stunned and didn't react. "You're saying you want to work with me? You mean, sell ingredients to me?" Du Lin asked in disbelief. After saying that, he laughed to himself. "Actually, if this was a normal restaurant, I wouldn't mind working with an acquaintance. But Yu Tianxian is the hope of my father and I, so I can't be too casual. The ingredients I want must completely meet the requirements I have in mind." Jing Yunjiao still nodded seriously. He didn't seem to be joking. She didn't feel that she was taking advantage of Du Lin. One must know that it wasn't difficult to sell the things in her space. If it weren't for her age, any restaurant would be happy to cooperate with her. It was only a matter of time before she wanted to make money. On the other hand, Du Lin was different. Without the best ingredients, no matter how precious his secret recipe was, it would not be able to meet the requirements in his heart, and it would be further away from his goal. "How about this? I'll send a cart of things to your Yu Tianxian tonight. Everything will be done according to your rules. If I can't pass your test, I'll take the things and leave. I won't make things difficult for you." Jing Yunjiao was still calm. Jing Yunjiao couldn't help but laugh in her heart. She was sure that once Du Lin identified the item she sent, everything else would be easy to handle. She would even be the one in control. Du Lin looked at her suspiciously and felt that his brain was stuffed with paste. Fortunately, Jing Yunjiao said that as long as he wasn't satisfied, he wouldn't force it. Since that was the case, he didn't have to give young Master Li face. He secretly glanced at young Master Li, seeing that he didn't have any intention of interfering. He sighed in relief. This Yu Tianxian was built by him, but Li Xiaoyun was his partner. Of course, he was the one who pestered Li Xiaoyun to get involved. After all, Li Xiaoyun's identity was special. Even in Huaning County, no one dared to provoke him. Standing on the same boat as him was impossible to sink. Therefore, if young Master Li agreed, there was nothing he could do. Fortunately, young Master Li wasn't a muddle-headed person. Chapter 120. After all, Du Lin did not know Li Xiaoyun well. At this moment, Li Xiaoyun did not think too much about Yu Tianxian. Instead, he felt the confidence emanating from Jing Yunjiao. The few times he had seen Jing Yunjiao were short, but they were still fresh in his mind. Even among her peers, there were few who were as calm as her. From the moment she decisively saved the girl and turned a blind eye to the blood flowing from the girl's forehead, he knew this girl was extraordinary. He had always been indifferent and did not like to meddle in other people's business. He was also too lazy to care about people who had nothing to do with him. However, after seeing her stubbornness, he felt that such a person was rare. If he could help her and get to know her, he would be lucky. Therefore, when Jing Yunjiao said that she could work with Yu Tianxian, he subconsciously believed her. Perhaps this was a kind of attraction between people of the same kind. Li Xiaoyun had a faint smile on his face, looking very gentlemanly. Along the way, he would occasionally say a few words, but most of them were about Jing Yunjiao's current situation. For example, what kind of family raised such a girl? Another example was how Jing Yunjiao's grades were, what kind of university she wanted to go to, and what she wanted to do when she grew up. He looked like an elder asking all these questions. Jing Yunjiao felt lucky that this man was only 24 or 25 years old. If he was a middle-aged uncle, who knows how long-winded he would be. After about 20 minutes, the car stopped in a small district. There were many small villas inside, but they were not luxurious or eye-catching. Although Du Lin was suspicious of Jing Yunjiao, he still politely invited her in. The house was very quiet. There was only an old man, fiddling with something in the kitchen. "Aya, Dad, this ice is so cold. Why are you sucking it? I'm going to puke." After Du Lin asked the two to sit down, he immediately went forward and heard a worried voice. On the way, Jing Yunjiao also heard Du Lin mention that his mother had passed away early and it was his father who brought him up. His father was not very old and had not reached the age where all of his teeth had fallen out, but this person would always have some problems. Uncle Du had a toothache, and when the pain was severe, he would neglect the taste of the dishes. In his life, his greatest strength was in cooking, so he was extremely anxious. "Why do you care? Once I put the ice in my mouth, it doesn't hurt as much." The old man mumbled, but when he noticed that there were guests, he changed his tone. "Young Master Li, you're here? You bastard, why didn't you say so earlier? I could have prepared a few good dishes to entertain you." As he spoke, the old man quickly stepped forward. When he saw Jing Yunjiao, a strange little girl, he was somewhat surprised and puzzled. "Uncle, this is the doctor I found for you. Let her take a look at your teeth." Li Xiaoyun was also very direct. Jing Yunjiao couldn't help but admire this man. When it came to doctors, she herself was a little guilty, but Li Xiaoyun was very calm, as if she was really an amazing doctor. Uncle Du was only stunned for a moment. Young Master Li introduced her? Then she must be capable. "Little girl, don't be afraid. Just watch." Jing Yunjiao was even more surprised. How much did this old man trust Li Xiaoyun? She felt that even if this family was sold by Li Xiaoyun, they would still help him count the money. "My father has said so. Yunjiao, don't worry and watch." Du Lin also understood his father very well and directly comforted him. Since the person involved was so magnanimous, Jing Yunjiao naturally wouldn't restrain herself. She first looked at the old man's complexion and had him open his mouth to take a look. Then, she solemnly checked his pulse. Her deadpan look really scared Du Lin. Chapter 121. After a brief moment, Jing Yunjiao retracted his hand. How is it? Du Lin asked with concern. At the same time, he was curious as to what Jing Yunjiao would say. The three men in the room stared at Jing Yunjiao, which made Jing Yunjiao a little uncomfortable, so he asked, Uncle Du, do you feel bitter in your mouth recently? Nodding his head, Uncle Du replied, that's right. Furthermore, my teeth can't be touched. The slightest touch will cause heart-wrenching pain. He wasn't afraid of pain, but it would affect his taste buds. Do you have a fever recently? Jing Yunjiao asked. Uncle Du nodded his head once more. Du Lin instantly felt deep respect for Su Dao. When he accompanied his father to the hospital, the doctors would only ask about his condition. No one could see through it like Jing Yunjiao. What medicine did the doctor prescribe? An anti-inflammatory needle? Jing Yunjiao's tone was still light as she asked again. When he finished speaking, Du Lin's eyes nearly popped out and he immediately gave a thumbs up. That's right. He was treated with Western medicine and injected with anti-inflammatory injection. But it has been 2 to 3 days, and he still hasn't recovered. The anti-inflammatory injection was something that Jing Yunjiao guessed. If it was a national healer, they would generally prescribe some gunpowder. As long as the doctor wasn't a quack, they would definitely be able to alleviate Uncle Du's toothache. However, he still hasn't recovered after a few days. It wasn't that Jing Yunjiao looked down on Western medicine, but he felt that they both had their own strengths. This illness is easy to treat, but I'll have to trouble Big Brother Du to buy some herbs. I don't need much, just angelica, cinnabar, and bramble. Oh, right. Do you have honey at home? Jing Yunjiao did not have a national healer's qualification certificate, so he naturally wouldn't take the initiative to write a prescription. Furthermore, the herbs that he needed were simple and non-toxic, so there would definitely be some in the pharmacy. At this moment, Du Lin believed in Jing Yunjiao's words. He immediately nodded his head and took note of it. After packing his things, he rushed out in 2 to 3 minutes. Fortunately, there was a pharmacy nearby, so it didn't take long for Du Lin to return. Jing Yunjiao borrowed the Du family's kitchen and dried the Angelica de Hurica into powder. He then mixed it with honey and powder and wrapped it with cinnabar. After a short while, he prepared the medicine and had Old Man Du drink it with bramble water. The medicine was not yet effective, but it would definitely make her feel better in a few hours. Uncle Du, don't eat anything spicy or heaty these days. You should also pay more attention to rest and don't get angry. Jing Yunjiao reminded him again. Uncle Du's doctor must have told him these words before, so Uncle Du agreed. He didn't know if it was a psychological effect, but he felt that his teeth didn't hurt as much as before. Moreover, this little girl looked young, but her words were light and gentle, and she was very calm. This made the anger in his heart subside a lot. Du Lin was completely intimidated by Jing Yunjiao. He looked at Jing Yunjiao with a cautious expression, as if Jing Yunjiao was a rare monster. At the same time, he couldn't help feeling guilty for his doubts earlier. When Jing Yunjiao delivered the ingredients tonight, even if the ingredients weren't good, he still had to be polite to avoid hurting her heart. Jing Yunjiao still had classes in the afternoon, so she did not stay in the Du family for long. After eating the meal personally prepared by Du Lin, she was sent back by Li Xiaoyun. She had to admit that the Du family's culinary skills were pretty good. The food here was even more delicious than the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant. They were truly worthy of being the descendants of the imperial chefs. At the same time, her thoughts of cooperation also became more active. Chapter 122. Jing Yunjiao's space was very large, so in addition to some medicinal herbs, she also planted a lot of fruits and vegetables. Because of the blue spring in the space, these things were fresher than the ones outside. After 2 classes in the afternoon, Jing Yunjiao asked for leave from her homeroom teacher and rented a small farmhouse in the county town. The house wasn't considered remote and was similar to the place where Uncle Shu lived, but it was slightly quieter. It was surrounded by courtyards with closed doors. It was very cold and cheerless, a little different from the houses in town. This kind of place just happened to meet Jing Yunjiao's requirements. It wasn't eye-catching and could be considered a transit station for the supplies in her space. The space had the ability to preserve freshness, so Jing Yunjiao didn't take out the fruits and vegetables she wanted to send over until night time. She rented a car and sent the things to Yu Tianxian's door. Yu Tianxian's decoration was simple and scholarly. It wasn't as luxurious as the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant, but it gave people a relaxed feeling. It was elegant and simple, with dark colors as the main theme. The area wasn't very large, but it was much more imposing than the other restaurants around it. Du Lin waited for a long time. When he saw Jing Yunjiao, he immediately hugged her and said gratefully, "My dad said his tooth is much better. He told me to thank you properly. Take the medicine again tonight, and the pain will probably be gone by tomorrow. But if you want to fully recover, you'll have to control your diet," Jing Yunjiao said. Du Lin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Why would a student like you know all this? You're amazing, but you talk like an old man. I really don't know what kind of person taught you to be such a freak." When he first saw Jing Yunjiao, he thought she was a beautiful little white flower of 15 or 16 years old. But in the blink of an eye, her image changed into a mature doctor in his heart. She didn't look like a student at all. She wasn't lively or cute enough. However, perhaps he was first intimidated by her brilliant appearance, but when he thought of the words lively and cute, he couldn't bring himself to think of Jing Yunjiao. If such a calm and smiling face were to act cute in front of him, he really wouldn't be able to bear it. Du Lin couldn't help but treat her as an adult, so he didn't feel so restrained when he talked to her. He asked someone to take some ingredients out of the car and carefully looked at them. They were fresh and tasted good. There was no smell of medicine at all. Actually, he already felt it when he got close. The sweet smell of the fruits could be smelled even from a distance. However, when he actually pinched those things and tasted them in his mouth, he was truly surprised. He found a treasure. His tongue was a crafty ancestral inheritance. What kind of taste could he not taste? One thing was for sure, if he used Jing Yunjiao's ingredients to cook, he would definitely be able to perfectly display the skills passed down by his ancestors, or even better. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Get the things out of the car. Everyone be careful. Du Lin's face was smiling like a chrysanthemum. He was so excited that he almost forgot that these things belonged to Jing Yunjiao. If they were friends, she wouldn't mind giving these things to Du Lin, but Jing Yunjiao wanted to work with Du Lin, so how could she let go of such a good opportunity? He narrowed his eyes and extended his hand to stop Du Lin from rushing into the car. "Mr. Du, since I've satisfied your request, shouldn't we talk about the price?" Du Lin felt a chill down his spine. He suddenly remembered that he doubted Jing Yunjiao before. Now, his little sister had a temper. He grinned and continued to smile. "Don't call me boss Du, call me brother Du, it sounds nice and intimate, right? Come, let's talk inside. Don't worry, the price is definitely negotiable." If he rejected such a good ingredient, his father would beat him to death when he returned. Chapter 123. Du Lin's attitude took a 180-degree turn. He was afraid that Jing Yunjiao would take the things and run away. After preparing a private room, Du Lin felt that his sincerity had reached its peak, and only then did he seriously open his mouth. "Yunjiao my, do you have a lot of these goods? How long can you keep delivering them?" If there was only a cart of vegetables, the business would not be successful. He had such a big restaurant, and it was possible to expand in the future. The quantity he needed would not be small. "Don't worry about the goods. My master left those things for me to distribute. If you are sure that you want them and the price is right, write down the quantity and type when you need them. I will deliver them to you the next morning," Jing Yunjiao said. The fruits and vegetables from the space might still have some of the space's aura, so they would rot slower than ordinary vegetables. It should not be so troublesome to deliver them every day. Du Lin's eyes lit up. "Good. As long as your goods are good enough, the price I give you will definitely be higher than the market price. You won't lose out. I still have a few months before I turn 16, so the contract will only be signed after I turn 16. Don't worry, I use my own labor as my main source of income, so I have the qualifications to sign the contract after I turn 16. However, during this period of time, I hope that you can fulfill the verbal agreement. The funds cannot be delayed. Also, other than the aquatic products, you can only accept my family's goods for these fruits and vegetables. If you can't do it, I will consider not signing the contract when the time comes, Jing Yunjiao said seriously. The most troublesome thing for her now was her age. She was not yet 16, so everything she did was limited. In addition to the contract, the medical qualification certificate was also a headache for her. Based on her current situation, it was best for her to follow the path of a master, but it also required years of practice to obtain the qualification. There was no way for her to do so for the time being. Jing Yunjiao's words made Du Lin feel a little irritated. What did she mean by using her own labor as her source of income? In other words, she was supporting herself. She was not yet 16. God, when he was 16, he was beaten by his father because of his grade. I won't delay the payment. After all, you're someone that young Master Li knows. Why would I do something that would harm my own people? Du Lin relaxed a little and said, but Sister Yunjiao, business is a little complicated, so if you run into any trouble and can't deliver the goods, you must let me know in advance. After signing the contract, we will also specify the number of days to deliver the goods every month. If you violate the contract, you will have to pay a penalty. But the money is secondary. The key is that Yu Tianxian is our family's blood, sweat, and tears. I can't let it have a problem because of the supply, do you understand? Du Lin's words could be considered a kind reminder. Jing Yunjiao wasn't a child after all, so he understood the rules. After she stabilized, she would contract some land and study how to grow the freshest and cleanest ingredients outside. Then, she would be able to prepare for the worst. Jing Yunjiao nodded. The two of them chatted as they ate and talked about some details. Du Lin also introduced her to the person in charge of purchasing in the kitchen. This way, it would be easier for them to communicate when delivering the goods in the future. As for the price, it would be determined according to the market price every month. But now that Yu Tianxian had just opened, it wasn't that popular yet, so her monthly income should be about 30,000 yuan. But her costs were all in her space. She only needed to pay for the seeds, so it was basically a net profit. In a place like the county, this income was definitely not low. Moreover, Yu Tianxian's situation was bound to get better and better in the future, so her income would naturally rise. Chapter 124. With one more source of income, Jing Yunjiao felt a lot more at ease. However, when she thought of the blue and white porcelain jar in her space, she couldn't help but think about it. In her previous life, the merchant who bought the blue and white porcelain jar didn't wait for the opportunity. Instead, he spread the news of the blue and white porcelain jar. Because the old man in Ning City was obsessed with porcelain, he paid attention to it. Now that it was in her hands, if she maintained the status quo, she was afraid that no one would know about it and she wouldn't be able to sell it. After careful consideration, on the way back, Jing Yunjiao stopped by the electronics store and bought a computer. After all, the speed of the internet was always faster than in reality. 2 days later, Jing Yunjiao finished setting up the internet. She clicked on a well-known antique website and filled in the picture and information of the blue and white porcelain jar. She also left a contact number. It was hard to feel at ease with something worth more than 20 million in her hands. Now, she just had to wait patiently. However, to Jing Yunjiao's surprise, she received a call in less than a week. Of course, these days, she received a lot of other calls, but none of them were what she wanted. Most of them couldn't be sure whether her jar was real or not, so the price was reserved. However, the old man in her previous life was completely different. On the phone, the voice of the other party was a bit old. He immediately said his name. The old man's surname was Tang. After introducing himself, his voice was a bit excited. He continued to say, "Are you from Huaning County? That blue and white porcelain jar hasn't been sold yet, right?" "Not yet." Jing Yunjiao opened her mouth. Suddenly, The old man surnamed Tang breathed a sigh of relief. However, at the same time, he was stunned. The voice on the phone was a woman. Moreover, she seemed to be very young. However, at this moment, he couldn't care so much. That's good. It's like this. I want to buy that blue and white porcelain jar. Do you think it's a good place for us to meet? This blue and white porcelain jar from the Ming Hongwu period was rare, let alone one that was in such a good condition. He didn't feel at ease letting his children and grandchildren buy such a good thing for him. Moreover, he had to see it with his own eyes. What did those brats at home know? I still have to go to school. I don't have time to go to Ning City, Jing Yunjiao said with some difficulty. Going to school? The old man was a little confused, but he didn't think too much about it. He said directly, how about this? Tomorrow, no, today, I will make a trip to Huaning County. You should know about the Heavenly Fragrance House, right? I'll have someone book a private room there. Let's meet there at 6 p.m. Jing Yunjiao thought about it. 6 o'clock was indeed just right, so he naturally agreed. However, when he thought of the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant, Jing Yunjiao felt a little helpless. Would he meet that young Master Li again? She didn't have any ill intentions towards Li Xiaoyun, but she just felt that Li Xiaoyun's attitude towards her last time was a little too strange. However, he had a gentlemanly temperament. It seemed that he had crossed the line, but people couldn't find anything wrong with it. It was better to stay away from such a complicated person. For the whole day, Jing Yunjiao couldn't help but think about the blue and white porcelain jar. It was rare for her to be absent-minded during class. Xiao Haiqing was surprised and thought that she was in trouble again. In terms of trouble, there really wasn't any. In both his previous and current lives, the past few days could be considered the most relaxed. Because every day, she could see Qiao Hongye's appearance being tormented by others. It was to the point that every time they passed by Qiao Hongye's class, Qiao Hongye would have a look of extreme shame and indignation on her face. Even her seat had been moved to the side of the rubbish heap by other students several times. The teachers of Class 2 could no longer stop them. Chapter 125. Qiao Hongye used to flaunt herself as the princess of Class 2. Even if she just sat there without moving, the other students would still praise her. But these days, she was faced with cold and sarcastic remarks every day. She could no longer concentrate in class like before. After all, she was the top student in class. When the teachers saw that she was absent-minded, they couldn't help but call her to the office to remind her. Qiao Hongye felt wronged. After being called by the teacher for 3 consecutive periods, she cried in the office and told the teacher about how her classmates framed her. Her grades were good and she used to be obedient. The teacher was naturally willing to seek justice for her. But the mouth belonged to others, and the law couldn't punish the majority. The teacher's words didn't have any effect. Instead, the students hated her even more. Just like that, Qiao Hongye went through the darkest week of her life. Her complexion was terrible, and she didn't have any energy. In the past, she was bright and obedient. But now, she was dim and dull. The boys felt that they had misjudged her. Qiao Hongye's looks were obviously very ordinary. How could she be called the school belle? She wasn't even worthy of being the class belle. Not only did Qiao Hongye suffer a huge blow in school, even at home, Qiao Hongye almost couldn't hold on anymore. Ever since Qiao Hongye lied to Qiao Weiman that she didn't find out Jing Yunjiao's address, Qiao Weiman treated her coldly. It was as if he felt that she had caused him to lose a large amount of income. She only went home once a week. She thought that she could relax, but in reality, she still had to do housework and suffered a lot. There was also her twin brother, Qiao Zizhou. He always felt that Qiao Hongye had embarrassed him in school, so he wasn't as gentle and considerate to her as before. So now, Qiao Hongye was very quiet in class. It was as if she was trying her best to make others forget her existence. Her situation was similar to Jing Yunjiao in her previous life. Jing Yunjiao didn't feel the slightest bit of sympathy for Qiao Hongye. There was a cause, and there was an effect. And this was just the beginning. In her previous life, she had spent her whole life being looked down upon by others. How many days had it been? The days ahead were still long. Jing Yunjiao's attitude was to wait and see. Every day, Hua Zei would report to her about Qiao Hongye's appearances outside the school, so she wasn't worried at all that Qiao Hongye would stir up any trouble. After school in the evening, Jing Yunjiao went back to Cozy Garden first. When she came out, she was holding her blue and white porcelain pot. Before she could get into the car, she saw Qiao Hongye pouncing on her. Biting her lips, she said with a face full of grievance, "Sis, help me please. Tell the classmates that I didn't wrongly accuse you in the past, nor did I find someone to rob you." Jing Yunjiao, however, was amused. This was hilarious. Could it be that she had erased her memories? "You want me to plead for mercy?" Jing Yunjiao smiled coldly and said, "In the future, I'll tell everyone that my sister found a few hooligans to play house with me. She's not so sinister as to ruin my reputation, right?" Qiao Hongye's face paled. If Jing Yunjiao said that, then her crime would be confirmed. "Sis, no matter what, my mother raised you to this age. Even if she didn't contribute, she still worked hard. Now that she's gone, you still treat me like this. She won't be able to rest in peace." Qiao Hongye clenched her fists and said. She was forced to beg Jing Yunjiao because she had no other choice. In the past, Jing Yunjiao was very obedient. She hoped that this time, she could lower her head for once. She thought that when she mentioned Yi Qin, Jing Yunjiao would be somewhat moved, but she didn't expect her expression to be the same as usual. "That's right, our mother won't be able to rest in peace." Chapter 126. Qiao Hongye's eyes widened. She didn't expect Jing Yunjiao to respond like this. Jing Yunjiao didn't mind. She looked at her as if she was looking at something dirty and said in disgust, "Qiao Hongye, don't forget that I found a prescription to save her." Even the old doctor in the hospital confirmed that it could save her, but Qiao Weiman insisted on not using it. You, her biological daughter, also refused to use it. "If I were her, I would chase after you too even if I died. I would only be at ease after seeing you two live more and more miserably each day." Jing Yunjiao deliberately scared her. How could she rest in peace after raising such a pair of children? Qiao Hongye's face paled. "I was afraid that your prescription wouldn't work and would make my mother's death more painful." Jing Yunjiao pursed her lips. Compared to suffering, she felt that Yi Qin should have wanted to live more. After all, she was only in her 30s. Compared to ordinary people, she hadn't even lived half of her life. Moreover, Qiao Hongye said it nicely, but in reality, she just felt that Yi Qin's illness had lasted for too long and had exhausted the gratitude in her heart. It was impossible to say that Qiao Hongye wasn't filial to Yi Qin at all. However, Yi Qin was chased by the illness and was in low spirits all day long. She needed to be coaxed, needed to be filial, and even needed the Qiao family's money. In the beginning, Qiao Hongye could endure and accompany her, but after a long time, she couldn't help but want to get rid of such a weak burden, right? Jing Yunjiao didn't want to continue arguing with her. This kind of person couldn't be reasoned with. Their values weren't even on the same channel. "I don't object if you like to put yourself on the moral high ground, but a good dog doesn't block the way." Jing Yunjiao reached out and hailed a car. Qiao Hongye pursed her lips and continued to block in front of her. However, just as she moved, she was kicked to the side by Jing Yunjiao. Her whole body rolled a few times on the ground. "Don't think that I'm a pushover. If you're in my way, a kick is already considered light." Jing Yunjiao looked down at her and shot her a glance. After she finished speaking, she got into the car and left. Qiao Hongye gritted her teeth. Her heart was unwilling. After thinking about it, she climbed up in a sorry state and hurriedly hailed a car to follow. She wanted to see where Jing Yunjiao was going to go when it was getting dark. As soon as Jing Yunjiao got on the car, the driver gave her a rather surprised look. He was obviously frightened by her nimble kick just now. However, Jing Yunjiao didn't have time to chat with the driver. In less than 2 minutes, he received a call from Hua Zei. "Just now, the brother I sent to follow Qiao Hongye told me that she took a taxi to follow her sister. I don't know where she's going, but it doesn't seem like she's planning anything good." Hua Zei didn't know that Jing Yunjiao was the boy who had made the deal with him. At this moment, He was similarly exclaiming in admiration at the might of his older sister, Qiao Hongye. Jing Yunjiao looked at the rearview mirror. Sure enough, there was a taxi following closely behind. The person inside was probably Qiao Hongye. Jing Yunjiao lowered his voice and said, "Your brother should be following behind, right?" She had paid 100,000 yuan. There was no reason for him to be reluctant to pay for the gas. That's right. Hua Zei was a little proud. His brother was the most righteous and responsible person in Hua Ning County. It was just a little girl following him. It was impossible for him to lose her. Jing Yunjiao's lips curled. That's good. When she stops later, think of a way to get her far away. She's so fat, it's time for her to exercise her body. With the driver around, she couldn't say it too bluntly. But who was Hua Zei? He had done a lot of bad things. How could he not understand? Chapter 127. After hanging up the phone, Jing Yunjiao requested the driver to drive into a small alley near the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant instead of the main road. After all, since they were going to kidnap someone, they couldn't possibly do it under the noses of passers-by. The driver's face was full of curiosity, but since it was a passenger's request, he would naturally do as she said. Moreover, although this girl was very fierce when she beat people up just now, she didn't look very old. Even though he heard that her tone on the phone was abnormal, he didn't think too much about it. When Jing Yunjiao got out of the car, he even stuck his head out to remind her to be careful. After all, it was already dark. It was still very dangerous for such a beautiful girl to walk into a small alley. After Jing Yunjiao got out of the car, she could clearly feel that another taxi had stopped as well. After taking a few steps and turning a corner, she heard the sound of careful footsteps behind her. She couldn't help but laugh mockingly. Since Hua Zei said that someone was following her, she naturally wouldn't stay in this small alley. She quickly walked out of the alley after making many turns. Meanwhile, Qiao Hongye, who had been carefully following her, was a little anxious. Jing Yunjiao walked too quickly, and this small alley was dark and gloomy. She was scared. After a short while, Jing Yunjiao disappeared. He didn't even know which fork she took and ran off. This made her even angrier. She turned around and prepared to go back, but when she turned her head, her mouth was covered tightly by someone and she was dragged into a car. Was she being kidnapped? The delicate Qiao Hongye had never encountered such a situation before. She decisively fainted. When she woke up, she was already in the suburbs. Those brothers had specially found a desolate area. Although Hua Ning County was considered rich, there were still many sparsely populated places around it. Hua Zei's brothers had even picked a very remote location. Because it was dark and there were many graves around, there was basically no one passing by this small road. As a result, when Qiao Hongye opened her eyes, she heard a series of GU sounds. The mud and grass under her feet made it seem like someone was following her. She was so scared that her legs went soft. However, this time, she didn't dare to faint. Who knew if she would become a lonely ghost when she woke up? She didn't even know where she was, so she could only bite the bullet and walk along the path. The path was long and winding, and she felt that it was very long. There were houses in the surroundings, but there was only one house occasionally. They were far away, and the faint lights made them even scarier. Qiao Hongye was wearing a white dress. Her outerwear had been taken away by Hua Zei's brothers, so she was exceptionally cold. Her straight hair fluttered in the wind, but it was especially messy because of the torment. She was sobbing all the way, and the tears on her face did not stop. It was a horrifying sight. On her way up the mountain, Qiao Hongye also bumped into two cars coincidentally passing by, but she had scared him away. She could only blame herself for her bloodshot eyes, which were filled with resentment. Her face was pale from fright, and she was dressed in a white dress and had long hair. She was definitely a female ghost. Who would dare to approach her? Every step was difficult. The more time passed, the more desolate it became. Qiao Hongye was on the verge of breaking down. On the other hand, Jing Yunjiao did not see such a scene. If he knew that Qiao Hongye was in such a miserable state, who knows how much he would laugh. As promised, He arrived at the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant. When he entered the private room, he saw an old man and a young boy of the same age beside him. "You're a waiter?" The young boy glanced at him and was a little surprised. He wondered why this waiter was so young. However, when he looked again, he felt that she didn't look like one, because the waiters here were all wearing work clothes. Jing Yunjiao glanced at him and calmly walked in. He looked at the old man and said, "You're old Mr. Tang, right? I'm the seller who made an appointment with you." She had just finished speaking when she saw that the old man and the young boy in front of her had the same expression, as if they were petrified. Chapter 128. That blue and white porcelain jar? The old man recovered from his shock and pointed at the item in the bag in her hand. Jing Yunjiao nodded and placed the item on the table. "I'm sorry, I met with some matters on the way here, so I came late. But don't worry, this item is indeed the one I put online. You can take a look at it first." Opening the bag, the old man carefully looked at it. Jing Yunjiao was very quiet at the side. The old man was very light as he murmured, "Not bad, not bad, the shape is elegant, the painting is exquisite, the design is clear, the blue and white color is quiet, the outer wall is decorated with blue and white, inscriptions, banana leaf patterns, peony twining branches on the abdomen, cloud and lotus petal patterns on the edges, the outer wall is curly grass pattern. The inside of the circle is white glazed, the bottom is slanted outwards, the appearance is domineering and noble. The lines are also perfect, smooth and soft." The old man said a bunch of things that Jing Yunjiao couldn't understand. After he finished speaking, he tugged at the boy beside him and pointed at the jar. "Zihua, take a look. This decorative design is arranged in 5 layers from top to bottom. Moreover, each layer is clearly separated from each other. It has a clean and sparse atmosphere. It's really a good thing." Jing Yunjiao looked. The boy beside the old man had the same expression as her. The words "I don't understand" were clearly written on his face. But the old man didn't care about this. After he talked a lot, his face was full of emotion, as if he was saying, why did he only find out about such a good thing now? After more than 20 minutes, the old man finally realized that the item wasn't his. There was a smile on his wrinkled face, but his turbid eyes were shining. His expression could be said to be benevolent. Tang Zihua, who was standing at the side, no longer had the face to look at his own grandfather. He was simply an old urchin. When he was at home, his grandfather was clearly very strict and not to be trifled with. Now, he was smiling so happily at an unfamiliar girl. If outsiders saw this, they would probably think that this girl was his biological granddaughter. "Little girl, is this thing your family heirloom?" the old man asked. If it was passed down from generation to generation, then this girl shouldn't be the one to make the decision. There should at least be a parent. Although he was determined to obtain it, he wasn't someone who would abuse his means. Jing Yunjiao shook his head. "I bought this from a small market in town. The seller's wife was sick, so he had no choice but to sell this big jar. But because the asking price was high, I got it in the end." Hearing this, the old man was even more surprised. "How much did you spend?" The old man couldn't help but ask. Jing Yunjiao smiled and didn't reply. Instead, he asked, "Do you want this big jar?" "Yes." "Why not?" the old man hurriedly said as if he was protecting his calf. Only then did he realize that this girl was testing him, lest he lowered the transaction price after knowing the cost she had to pay. "Can you make the decision on this? I don't think you're an adult yet. If your parents aren't around." The old man was also in a difficult position. "I don't have parents. I bought this thing, I can make the decision," Jing Yunjiao said and took out the certificate she had written when she severed ties with Qiao Weiman. The old man frowned. She had no parents. Such a delicate girl. What a pity. No wonder this girl was so calm just now. It seemed that she was used to living independently. He had a better impression of her and felt pity for her. "Since that's the case, let's talk about the price. I won't make things difficult for you. If you agree to the price, just nod your head. If you don't, we'll discuss it again. How about it?" Jing Yunjiao expressed her agreement. The old man then said, 35 million. Jing Yunzhao's heart skipped a beat. Why was it different from her previous life? And it was so much more. Chapter 129. She remembered that the price was more than 20 million. Jing Yunzhao didn't know that the merchant who sold the blue and white porcelain jar in her previous life was cunning and greedy. The old man didn't like him, so he lowered the price. Now, the price the old man offered was fair. Seeing Jing Yunzhao's surprised expression, the old man felt a little better. Just now, when this girl entered the door, she looked so confident and at ease. Obviously, it didn't match her age. Now, her reaction was normal. 35 million, if she still had a calm attitude, it would make an old man like him feel ashamed. The old man smiled with squinted eyes. Jing Yunzhao's surprise didn't last long. How could she not accept such a good deal? She immediately nodded. The old man took a look and immediately hugged the blue and white porcelain jar in his arms with a smile. After asking for Jing Yunzhao's account number, he had Tang Zihua, who was standing behind him, make a call. After confirming the account balance, the transaction was finally completed. After settling the business, the old man relaxed and asked the waiter to serve the dishes. Jing Yunzhao had waited for more than half an hour and her stomach was already empty. When she ate, it was like a locust passing through, but there was an indescribable elegance and cleanliness. Tang Zihua was a little shocked. Just now, the impression that Jing Yunzhao gave him was one of calmness and composure, noble and aloof. Only when she smiled would there be a hint of elegance and gentleness. Usually, this type of girl would pay a lot of attention to their image, but he didn't think that he would be wrong. Jing Yunzhao's movements were still impeccable, but the speed at which she ate was truly breathtaking. She was completely different from the rich young ladies he had seen before. His impression of girls was mostly delicate or cute, but Jing Yunzhao was completely different. However, in the old man's eyes, Jing Yunzhao's straightforward personality was more likable. She wasn't pretentious and her appearance was pleasing. He couldn't help but speak a few more words with her. As they chatted, Grandfather Tang increasingly felt that Jing Yunzhao was a good girl. She knew when to advance and when to retreat. She was polite and sensible. His impression of her continued to grow. It was a pity that Jing Yunzhao was from Ning County. Otherwise, Grandfather Tang might have invited her to his home as a guest. Jing Yunzhao was a little speechless. I seem to be particularly popular with the elderly. Grandpa Gan, Old Man Shu, Old Man Tang, and even Du Lin's father seemed to treat her quite well. While the three of them were eating, they suddenly saw Tang Zihua take out a medicine bottle and swallow a few pills. Jing Yunzhao was stunned. She didn't take a good look at Tang Zihua just now. Now that she saw him taking the medicine, she realized that his complexion was indeed not very good. Perhaps it was because of the high temperature in the private room, his face was a little flushed, and his lips were indeed a little pale. Looking down on Jing Yunzhao's background, Old Man Tang laughed. "What are you looking at, girl?" Jing Yunzhao restrained her expression, feeling a little embarrassed. For a moment, she forgot that she wasn't even 16 yet. She was completely a little girl in her puberty. It wasn't good to stare at a boy of the same age as her. Who knows, she might be misunderstood by others. Sure enough, Tang Zihua's face turned even redder. "Grandfather Tang, don't misunderstand. I was just curious to see him take the medicine," Jing Yunzhao hurriedly explained. Grandfather Tang nodded in understanding and said, "My grandson's health hasn't been good since he was young. On the surface, he doesn't look any different from other people. In reality, he's a medicine bottle. If he doesn't take his medicine, something will happen the next day." Jing Yunzhao narrowed her eyes and couldn't help but ask, "Can I take a look?" Chapter 130. After all, she was now a doctor. Although she couldn't make house calls, she would occasionally follow Grandpa Gan to see patients and learn some experience. However, the number of times was limited, so she didn't have much experience. Now that there was a patient in front of her, it was impossible for her not to be moved. Jing Yunzhao also realized that she was being a little rude, so she quickly said, "It's like this, I've learned some medical skills." After all, she hadn't felt the pulse yet, so Jing Yunjiao couldn't insist that she could treat him. Although she had absorbed most of the energy from the second piece of spirit jade, Tang Zihua's illness seemed to have been branded since he was young, so it was hard to say with her current level. You've learned medical skills? Elder Tang was even more surprised. When he was chatting with her, he felt that this girl wasn't someone who would casually spout nonsense. However, it was hard for him to believe that a child who was the same age as his grandson had learned medical skills. Elder Tang was like this, let alone Tang Zihua. The old man and the young girl stared at her for a while, causing Jing Yunjiao to feel a little embarrassed. If Elder Tang isn't willing, then forget it. I'm just asking. Jing Yunjiao changed the topic. The Tang family was one of the top families in Ning City. The Tang family's descendants were naturally in contact with the best doctors in the country. Her request would indeed cause a misunderstanding. Just when Jing Yunjiao thought that Elder Tang would refuse, he suddenly smiled. Zihua, let the little girl take a look. She was curious and even expectant. It had been a long time since she had this feeling, especially when it came from a child. Tang Zihua was a little puzzled, but he obediently sat beside Jing Yunjiao. After thinking for a while, he stretched out his hand and placed it on the table. Jing Yunjiao then realized that Tang Zihua was very pale, and this kind of whiteness had a kind of morbidity. She calmly stretched out her hand and felt a weak pulse. Jing Yunjiao was also surprised. His pulse was weak, but there was a trace of vitality. His weak body couldn't take too much nourishment, but he couldn't not take it. Now, his complexion looked good. It was probably because he took the medicine on time. However, this medicine did not cure the root of the problem. Tang Zihua's illness should have been present since he was young. He couldn't stand the cold, heat, or stimulation. If he controlled his diet and emotions, he would look no different from a normal person. But once the illness flared up, it would be like walking in front of the gates of hell. If he was lucky, he could be pulled back. But if he met a quack or was stimulated too much, he might really die. Jing Yunjiao furrowed her brows. Grandfather Tang glanced at her and knew that she had seen through something. How is it? Elder Tang's words carried some sincerity. I can't cure it in a short time, but... Jing Yunjiao hesitated for a while. He couldn't say that he would be cured after absorbing a few pieces of spirit jade, so he said, but if you recuperate according to my method, you should be able to cure it within a year. With her current speed of absorbing the spirit jades, her level would be completely different from her current level after a year. However, she currently had some recuperation medicine in her memory that could slowly increase his body's ability to bear the burden. In Jing Yunjiao's eyes, her words were hesitant and apologetic. But in Grandfather Tang's ears, it was like the sound of nature. 1 year. Was 1 year long? Tang Zihua had been ill for more than 10 years. During this period, he had taken countless medicines. There were even 3 times when he almost lost his life. Even the doctors said that his body was weak and that he could only rely on the medicine to survive for as long as possible. But although this was good news for them, Grandfather Tang couldn't help but feel conflicted. Should he believe her words or not? If he didn't believe it, and if Jing Yunjiao really could cure it, then he would miss a chance to make his grandson healthy. But if he believed it and his grandson got worse, then it would be too late to regret it. After all, the other party was just a little girl. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.